Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, there are no proclamations. Roll call, please.
Mayor Kurtzman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barrera,
Here.
Commissioner Linder,
Here.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Here.
Commissioner Tippett.
Here.
All right, let me see, these are two items that are on the agenda, for the two cards. Now we're going to go for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve as provided?
I'll second. Did we do the agenda? Or
Discussion.
deletion?
Discussion?
Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah, I would like to pull item 1A, the minutes from April 22nd.
I'll amend my motion to include the pulling of item A.
I'll second.
Here now.
Yes. And this is for the,
This goes down to the lawyer,
Is it-
Frank, and then the attorney.
Ready for the roll.
all right, roll call?
For you or for me?
Vice Mayor Barrera,
Here.
Commissioner Linder,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett,
Yes.
Mayor Kurtzman.
Yes.
All right, I'd like to make a motion. I want to add something to the agenda under discussion. The resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewell's Point, Florida, amending ordinances 82-392 and 70-1 of the Town of Code ordinances relating to building regulations, providing for the inclusion of the commission review for any purpose development 25 feet upland from the shoreline, providing for severability, codification, and effective date.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Yes.
This is a resolution, and Len can correct me if I'm wrong, can't supersede an ordinance.
Correct.
So if the intent was to update the ordinance, which, we're waiting on, the ordinances that Glenn and Elizabeth are working on, but if you wanted to make this as an ordinance for the first reading, then you can make changes to the existing ordinances. So, am I saying that correctly, Len? or-
Right, yeah. You
So
can
we-
only change an ordinance by ordinance.
So we can make this a separate ordinance. Right?
Well,
Is that what you're saying?
You could make it into an ordinance, but it's not in ordinance form now, so it might be difficult. I haven't seen it, so I was,
Do you have a copy of
oh,
this?
well, I'll take your comment.
Just a quick question.
yes, Frank, I'm sorry.
Just clarification. I haven't seen this tonight. Just help me understand what it is real quick.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Perth gave us that a while ago, about 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago. He recommended that we try and adopt this.
So we want to adopt a new resolution. I see resolution at the top. It doesn't
Right.
have numbers 2025. So we're introducing this as a potential resolution?
Well,
I see wording
well,
that's-
that's what I thought we were doing, but apparently we can't do it.
Well, if your intent is to change an ordinance, you can't change it with a
Right.
resolution.
Okay, so-
You're the
But this is
commission,
an
you can do what you
existing
want.
ordinance, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, this is not an existing ordinance. It's an existing ordinance that we want to change.
Oh,
Right now, isn't council, I believe, is going over this, correct? So we haven't seen anything yet, so why don't we wait to see what council does, and we could actually,
How long
Make
is that going
adjustments.
to take?
Well, they're supposed to have it ready for the next meeting.
I mean, can we, suggest maybe putting this on the agenda for,
Okay.
We'll try and get in the next meeting on the agenda.
Just hang on to it, don't lose it.
We're probably going to need it, yeah.
We won't. All right, so let's go back to,
We're approving,
I guess the minutes we're talking about.
okay.
So go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, if you would go to page 6, April 22nd minutes, and the first paragraph. And if you go to the fourth line down, the sentence starts, "He shared an email sent to the town clerk that requested the draft minutes be first proofread by the town manager and finance director." And the memorandum that was sent by Mrs. Pierce to Mrs. Stonechis basically read, bear with me, basically read, send it to Bob and I for proofreading, for proofing and approval before sending to the commissioners. So I would like the minutes to be changed and reflect the fact it wasn't just for proofing, which I have no problem with, but I do have a problem with it approval prior to it coming to the commission, because the commission approves the minutes.
Wouldn't it still be the same difference, pretty much?
No.
Just a little bit in the wording, same meaning?
No, it's not the same wording. Proofreading and approval are two different things, Mayor.
Can you suggest the line item the wording you want to change?
Yeah.
Just so I can see it?
I just take it right off the email. It says, the email reads, "For proofing and approval."
Okay, so your concern is what's reflected here just says proofread, but you want to add an approval to it?
Correct. That's
For
because
what you disagree with?
I objected to the approval portion.
Oh.
I didn't object to the town manager proofreading any of the minutes. That's fine.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
just to clarify, and we went through this, the last meeting, and, the approval that we're talking about is just that everything is correct in the minutes, structurally, grammar, spelling, and so forth, and obviously, we don't approve, nobody on staff approves the minutes, the commission does. We know that. So it was just a different terminology meaning different things, or the same terminology meaning different things. But I agree, that's what's in the memo, and that's what the minutes should reflect.
okay. Any more discussion on this? All right, do we agree to change the minutes on this?
Well, I think you need a motion to approve the minutes
As
with as amended. Thank you, Lynn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Roll call.
Commissioner Bender?
Yes.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Titicus?
Yes.
Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Burrell?
Yes.
All right, so we go on to old business.
Mayor, I think there was something that was going to be added to the agenda. I think we skipped over additions, deletions, or changes.
I'm sorry.
Yes, we did skip over it, but I think that's what the vice mayor brought up, is what he wanted to add was the resolution.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Right. So,
So, no problem.
That's the 7.
Oh, 7 Morgan, that's right. Thank you.
thanks.
Uh,
So we're
Can
gonna-
we go back to the changes to the agenda? I think we
Yes.
missed that on the agenda.
All right, so we're going to go back to any changes, deletions, or additions. I said it backwards,
Either way.
because I'm going backwards. So, to the agenda.
I'll make a motion to add the 7 Morgan Circle item to discussion section.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Titicus?
Yes.
Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Burrell?
Yes.
Commissioner Bender?
Yes.
All right. We're going to go to old business. And it would be speed survey results.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes, you may.
As everyone's well aware of it, we went out, we did a survey, and we covered just under, I guess, 25% of the residents. We dealt, the method that we used was we mailed out a postcard with a QR code on it, and to every property owner that was in Sewell's Point. And we also sent out a constant contact, which also had the UCR code, and also a link if somebody couldn't scan in the code. And we also had the code at the Easter egg event that we had. We had it posted, and we also posted it here at Town Hall. And so those were basically the results. The first question that was asked was if the person thought traffic calming was needed in their respective area. The results were that 90 residents, or 55%, thought the town should maintain the status quo, and 74 or 45% answered yes, that they thought traffic calming was needed. The highest option was the speed limit being lowered to 25, with 27 residents responding. The second highest was reducing, I think I said lowering the speed limit to 25, and reducing it to 30 was 22 residents. And that covered South Sewell's Point. North Sewell's Point, there were 33 residents that thought traffic calming was needed. 32 responded to keep the status quo. Of the residents in favor of traffic calming, 23 chose lowering the speed limit to 25. 5 wanted optical speed bars, 3 wanted the speed limit lowered to 30 miles per hour. And in your packet and also on the screen is what we did for South Sewell's Point, again showing the percentages and the actual votes, and then the different options. If somebody checked yes, if you checked you wanted the status quo, you didn't go any further in the survey. So, what we have for the traffic calming, what type of traffic calming they preferred was just for those people that said they wanted traffic calming. And then that's the south end, and then the north end, you can see it was one vote off in the survey for yes presiding, and then of course the lowering the speed limit was by far the largest to 25. Again, just for those who are listening on YouTube and so forth, and the audience that's here, North Sewell's Point Road is a county road, so obviously we can make a request from the commission if you would like to do that, and we can formulate a resolution and bring that at the next meeting and pass it and send it on to the county commission if you'd like, but it's really theirs to take the action on. Any questions?
Commissioner Mayfield.
That was from prior.
Oh,
But
sorry.
I do have a question unrelated. Did we approve the consent agenda? I know we did the item that was, okay.
We did.
I just missed the change.
Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah, a couple comments. Number one, I was disappointed in the response rate. And when you break down this response rate between north and south, the overall response rate was 25.3%, as Mr. Daniels pointed out. But North Sewell's Point had a higher percentage of response than South Sewell's Point. North Sewell's Point response rate was 32.5%, just because they have fewer homes. And so, but be that as it may, I also am curious in terms of mail out, Mr. Daniels had told me that we sent out 902 mails letters. And was there were you able to get a breakdown between the email response rate versus what came back in the letters?
Not yet.
Okay. I would like that information to be reported to the commission because it impacts us in terms of future communications. And on the newsletter response, which basically was the email, I'd like to know what was sent, what was delivered, how many bounced, what was the open rate, what was the click rate, and then the mail response of the 902 that were mailed out, how many of those were actually clicked on. And I don't know if she used different QR codes, so she may not be able to differentiate it, but at any rate, I think that information is valuable for future communications. In terms of, even though it's been a light response, the South Sewell's Point people have basically said they want the status quo maintained. And I think we should honor that. And if you don't vote, you don't get a say. And in terms of the North, these individuals have indicated that they would like the people that responded, and it wasn't just one vote, it was 1%. It was a handful of votes because it was pretty close. It was 49-51. I think we should approach the county about doing two things. One is lowering the speed limit, and then the second thing is that we ought to consider from Periwinkle Circle across the street to the sidewalk, and I'm blanking on the other street that is on the east side of North Sewell's Point Road, but there's also a group of homes in there. And we heard from people that, there's no way for them to get to the sidewalk without hazarding something. And I'm not talking about just putting a crosswalk in so that traffic has to stop if kids are trying to cross the street. But those two actions, I believe that we ought to consider taking up as a commission. And then the final comment is there were 17 pages of comments, and I was very pleased to see that people took the time to express their viewpoint in terms of what they thought, how things should be handled and what they thought about it, and what ideas they liked and what ideas they didn't like. So that aspect of it was a positive.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, I had stated before when we were talking about this that I was open to the idea of, requesting a speed limit reduction in North Sewell's Point. So I'm not against that. Even though I think more people said 25, I think that 30 is a better number. Not that we even have to recommend a number. I did speak with our district commissioner at the county, Commissioner Vargas, about this topic, lowering the speed limit, and she deferred and said, there are studies that our engineers do about that topic, and so that she would get back to me, or I need to check back in with her. That was a while ago, so I would check back in with her, but that was the reply when I asked. And then I love the concept of a crosswalk in North Sewell's Point, but I am no traffic expert or law enforcement expert, but that just doesn't seem like a smart idea just because of the traffic. Yes, I know people want to get to the sidewalk, but we don't even have sidewalks in South Sewell's Point, so it's not that strange that they don't have access to a sidewalk. And it just seems like a recipe for maybe some problems that we don't have right now, like pedestrians crossing the road. So that's just off the top of my head.
Vice Mayor.
My only problem with lowering the speed limit on North Sewell's Point Road is you're going to have traffic backed all the way up. If anybody goes over this bridge around 4 or 5 o'clock or tries to get over this bridge, you see how far back the traffic is. kind of stops us from coming out of neighborhoods. Because of that traffic, because it flows. Once it opens up and once that light turns green and that left turn light, boom, we get bombed with cars. You can't get out of there for 15 minutes at times. As far as the crosswalk is concerned, I agree with Commissioner Mayfield that it might be asking for trouble. Although, it's a good idea, but it might be asking for trouble at that particular point in the roads, I guess. Traffic is already building up speed going there. Periwinkle's pretty far down on North Sewell Point Road. Once they're up in that speed of 35 miles an hour, it's hard for them to see somebody on the side waiting to cross. So,
The one thing I find interesting is the people I've talked to who've lived here for quite a few years, they want to keep it the same because they've seen how the traffic patterns change, whether it's the vice mayor, Dr. Farrell, Mrs. Merkel. All these people have been here 20-plus years, and it's pretty consistent that they just want to leave it alone. They're the same reason that the vice mayor mentioned. They're afraid they won't be able to get out of their driveways, or they won't be able to get across the street. If it goes to 25, it's slow enough during rush hour where the traffic doesn't move, and you're already doing 25 or less most of the time, and it's even going to get slower if you put it to 25. That was their concerns. And it's so close when you look at it. It's 49, 50% to 51%, or one vote difference between the two. I mean, I would tend to agree, and also what Commissioner Mayfield mentioned, if we don't have a problem with people crossing the road now, will that create a problem later on? And this is pretty much the issue with North Sewell's Point Road. I do see very bad traffic. If you want to go, especially in season, if you're trying to get into Jensen Beach, you're going straight across from south to north, you'll see that it does back up quite a bit, and the traffic already backs up sometimes to almost the other side of the bridge, where everybody wants to make a left-hand turn, and it makes it impossible. If you're doing 25, it's only so many cars could fit in when it backs up. And I just see more problems ahead. I really am in favor of leaving North Sewell's Point at 35 on the road, just from the people I've spoken with that actually have lived there for many years. Any other comments? Okay. Are we looking to move forward with doing anything from here as a commission? Let's move on to new business, correct? And we're going to talk about the modification to the driveway ordinance, which would be number 3.
Mayor, if I may.
Did we miss something
Yes,
here?
yes, town manager.
Obviously, you had suggested at our discussion part of the meeting, the last meeting that we had, was looking at, doing away with concrete and asphalt driveways.
Correct.
And I think you might have mentioned pavers, but we already have regulations against the use of pavers in the calculation of the property, using up the property. We're at 45% for use of the lot, and 55% is to be remain vacant. And used to be that you could use pavers and not count that towards filling the lot, or taking up the lot. So, and we made that change probably 2-3 months ago, if I recall, to help, again, improve the drainage, and the more area that you have that's ground, and I think that's what your intent was in bringing up the discussion about the ordinance, doing a change
Yeah,
at
trying
the
to,
last meeting. I don't want to speak for you, but
yes.
so what I asked Jack Reisinger, our building official, to look into the composition of the driveways and Basically, that would just leave crushed rock, gravel, shell, or the natural grade if we do away with concrete or asphalt driveways. And I think as part of his research, and it was in, I believe it was in your packet, yeah. There's pictures of drains that are across the driveway, so the water flow, when it comes down a driveway, gets caught in a drain, and then goes out to the yard area, and there's a yard drain that sits out about 25 feet. I was looking for the picture of the yard drain, and I didn't have it, so, but if you see this bottom picture on your screen, and it just goes off to the right and then off to the left. So it funnels that water separately. So, Jack, is there anything else you want to bring up about what you found out about the drains and the grates? Mr. Mayor, if I can have Jack come up. and
Please.
address.
Hello, Jack Reisinger, building official, Town of Sewell's Point. I did some research on this trough that goes all the way across the driveway, and it seems to be working. In fact, we even had a resident here that had a gravel driveway that he thought would be catching all the water. It was actually taking all the gravel, the Chattahoochee gravel, and pushing it out onto River Road. So at his expense, he removed all the gravel, put in pavers, but also put in quite a few of the troughs all the way across the driveway, and it then drains into his retention area, as a large retention area. So we had it all troughed over to the area where it collects and then seeps into the ground. So he's doing a big service to the town by keeping all that water on his property. On another note, we just had another large concrete driveway go in on the north end of town, which is underneath the 45 percentile, just so you know. And he put in concrete. There's nothing that says he couldn't. But, and we don't have anything in place that says he has to put in these troughs, but I was able to persuade him to put in a couple of these to catch the water before it runs out onto the North Sewell's Point Road. But they seem to be working, and if we have an ordinance, we can even put in place how many we require, like every 50 feet, every 25 feet, or whatever there is. This way, I have something that I can give to that homeowner to say, yeah, you can go ahead and do this, but you'll be required to put these troughs in to hold back that water onto your property.
Yeah, the other thing I've seen around town, a lot of people are starting to put them in, or quite a few of the newer driveways. They're like an octagon shape that are hollowed in the center where they're growing grass, and those seem to have worked pretty well as well.
Those will work for a little bit, but when you get a big downpour and you get the rush of water across, it'll, because that's pretty firm between those bricks. They will percolate, yes, but if you get enough of that water cascading down, it's just going to run right over it and go out into the road or the neighboring property. But yeah, those are a better alternative than, of course, a solid surface, for sure.
Yeah, I do like the idea of the drains that are in the middle. I know there's a home for years ago over on River Road as you go right past Mandalay on the west side of the road, probably the third or fourth home after Mandalay. You'll see it's almost like a crease at the end, and they have that drain. And there's another home, similar type of driveway, that's right on the corner of Mandalay and River Road, and the water comes flying out of his driveway, but the other one, it doesn't. It retains in that, as you mentioned, the same type of drain that's in your pictures.
Yeah, the one that you're speaking of where it does run down on the corner, he does have a drain. It's hard to see from the road, but it's there. It's not that wide of a drain.
That's the
And
problem.
we didn't have any requirements at the time to say you need, because he probably could have used more than one. And then we could even have the size to the width so that the water doesn't just, skip over it.
Yeah, because I've seen where the water is going flying out of that driveway. We have a heavy storm, and the guy
Correct.
directly across the street, his garage is right there.
Correct.
And he's
He's
getting.
got one at his garage, too. The guy across the street has one right there at the garage, but that's.
Yes, but it's too much water to handle.
No, correct. And he's got a sump pump to get it out of there, yeah.
So, yeah, I've witnessed that firsthand from the previous owner.
Yes.
And, you know, it gets pretty messy. And the same thing when you go on Mandalay Road, you'll see the water come down because it goes around the bend also from the other driveway that's up in the cul-de-sac, as well as there's a driveway from a home that's closer to Mandalay, but between Margarita and Mandalay, the water comes flying out of his driveway and makes its way around, so it's kind of what's creating the flooding.
Yep.
So we've seen that pretty consistently.
But it seems to be the thing where new driveways are going in to replace old driveways. It's the thing right now, I guess. So now would be a good time too, if you wanted to put something in place like that, so that we would have something that would regulate it.
All right, and Commissioner Fender.
So have you offered us any wording changes or any updates to the ordinance that we can consider? To include the,
Yeah, I think I wanted to, make sure that you all were, as a full commission, were on board with doing the ordinance, so we can draft something with some language in it for your approval, if that's what you would like to do. I'm just looking for direction at this point. And
everyone else says?
I would like every 25 feet personally, but we'll see what everybody else says. Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah, I think we're going to go in and we're going to make a change along these lines. We also ought to put in semi-permeable too, and the semi-permeable should not count towards your coverage. And when you look at what is semi-permeable, okay, well, as Jack mentioned earlier, it's wood, chips, it's Chattahoochee, it's gravel, stuff like that. However, it is also porous brick, and they do sell porous brick, open joint bricks, open paving patterns, grass concrete pavers, and porous macadam. If you remember right, down on South Sewell's Point Road, right before Ridgeland, there was porous macadam that was put in on the side, and it fed into the retention area on the west side of the town. Now, Mr. Reisinger is absolutely right that in a heavy downpour, these semi-permeable are not going to carry off the water. But in the summer showers like we have and things along those lines, they'll more than handle it. Major storm, you're going to get water going down that driveway, and I don't care if you put a grate in or not. It's going to fill it up, and it will continue to flow down the driveway. So if we're going to consider this, I think we ought to include a category for semi-permeable also, and address that in the coverage issue.
Vice Mayor.
My question is, yeah, just like Mr. Tidiger said, in a heavy downpour, it's not going to collect water. It is going to fill up and run out unless we have someplace to send it. And I don't see where you're going to send it on the sides of people's driveways to where it will hold that amount of water.
Well,
So-
that'll be,
You might have to have more than one, obviously.
well, more than one, plus that question would come up. They would say, well, where's it going to pop up and go to? We would then require them to have a retention area. Because not all houses have retention areas, all the older ones don't. So this would almost be a good way to get them to put in a retention area to hold back their water also. So it would be, in addition, you're putting in a driveway, you're also going to have to collect that water somewhere. There's a retention area you're going to have to put in.
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of houses out there that don't have that, or can't afford that, to put retention areas on either side of their driveway because of certain right-of-ways.
Well, you don't have to put it on both sides. You could lead it to one side. Yeah.
Because I have a right-of-way, for instance, right in front of my driveway, it goes right down the front of my driveway. So if I was gonna put that there, when we have also the wire, they send it up the front of our houses too. So it's gonna be difficult to have everybody have a retention area, or anybody to have a retention area, I like the idea.
Mhm.
It's great.
Well, there might be an exclusion for something like that, that it would be a clause in there that said unless it's absolutely impossible or cost prohibited, something like that. But I
I'm-
guess we'd
I'm
have to
just-
see what the draft would come
I'm
up
just
with.
getting into dry wells now, so, so I don't mind doing something like that. But, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, Mayor, what was your original ordinance change? Because it was on the agenda the last.
I was trying to figure something out. The problem is, it's not when we just have a rain that's just coming
Right.
down. It's when we have the heavy downpours. This is what we want to prevent. That's the
Right.
only time we have flooding is during heavy downpours. If it's raining like it did the past few days, you don't have heavy downpours. It's a lot of rain, but it's not flooding. I'm talking about these rains that create the flooding because the water comes flying out of the driveways. I think these drains that.
No, I agree with you. I like the drains. I just didn't know, because it looked, they came in with the drain idea, and I was just trying to remember if you had a solid idea or you were just addressing it in general. I didn't know if you had said no concrete or no.
I was saying no more concrete and asphalt. That's something we need to stop. And going forward, we could talk about semi-permeable.
I think the drains are a great idea, and I support it, so I'd like to see it come back. I'm semi-hesitant at, saying no concrete or asphalt or any, because I also have a son that plays all the time in our driveway, basketball and whatnot, and obviously you can, we even have bricks, but I just want to be careful that we're looking at everything before we say no concrete or no asphalt, because people do a lot of different things with their life, but I love the drain idea.
Well, the drain could go in between the concrete. And concrete's still better looking than asphalt. You don't see too many asphalt driveways here. So, what I'd like to do is bring this back again, where maybe we're talking about the drains being maybe, if it's on a concrete driveway, 25 feet apart. Or we could also talk about, as Commissioner Titicus mentioned, is the semi-permeable driveways with the different materials. Maybe if they're using that, maybe they could go like 30 feet apart, or we could arrange for something. And the big problem really is, it's the long, large driveways that are sitting on the west side of town, but also even down here, you got large driveways, and what's happening is they, on the east side, but if there's no place for that water to go and it just lays on the driveway, it also stays on the road in many cases. So it would be nice to have, especially on the east side, where they are permeable driveways, where the water could take in quicker. And it really benefits the homeowner as well as the people that are using the main road. And so the water is able to escape somehow. If it doesn't escape, it goes on the road, then it goes across the street onto the other neighbors. And this is what it avoids. And I think this would be a great ordinance to have. And we want to do it before we get more homes coming or getting built, or more people want to rip up their driveways again. It's going to create more of a problem.
So not hearing any objections, I'll move forward with an ordinance on, kind of summarizing and including the semi-permeable. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And now we're going to new business, and we wanted to add 7 Morgan Court.
You had a speaking request from Diane Kimes. I don't know.
Oh, Diane, I am so sorry.
That's okay. You're doing what I want you to do. I'll just say quickly, because I have first-hand experience. Last year, we broke up about 1,310 square feet of cement and put in the cross-hatching. And we're high, we're on a stem wall, we're 12 feet above sea level. We don't have, it literally has made an amazing difference. And even because that water just rushes off our roof right into this wide expanse driveway. And I'll record next time we get a deluge. But it really percolates. It slowly goes down, and it does do what it's supposed to do. And according to Jack, because of that 1,300, if we ever wanted to do any kind of an expansion, we could actually use that. But, we had the privilege 25 years ago of living on Sanibel for a couple of years, and you did not see any cement driveways at all. They were all permeable, and it made a huge difference. and very, multi-million-dollar homes, very much the same type of resident over there that we have here. So it's all about quality and making sure that the water drains down perfectly without sitting on the road. So I applaud the town commission in looking at this and making decisions to get rid of cement if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. All right, now we're actually going, I guess we're discussing 7 Morgan Court. We put it as
Yes.
discussion, correct?
Yes.
All right, so,
If I can lay the predicate for the discussion, I think this has been an ongoing situation for about a year. The property owner is here, and as well as the 2 adjoining residents. And I guess what got off to the bad start was the fact of putting on the walls first and the retaining walls. And I guess, normally you would think, especially in the area where 7 Morgan Circle is, and I believe most of you have seen it, and looking at the amount of dirt that can slide down. In fact, one of the neighbors had actually had to replace his pool area because it was going into the St. Lucie. So realizing that that's an important part, but then the wall itself was ruled by Florida Department of Environmental Protection of being in the wet area, basically, and affecting the vulnerability of the wetlands there. And so they had to move the one wall up and out, which I don't think most of you had a privilege of seeing on your trip, because that wall is gone. And there's an existing wall that a small part of that wall is again in the wetlands area. So we heard from our ordinances, and Glenn has looked at the ordinances and looked at the interpretations, and basically we're at a position where we're waiting for DEP to make a decision. Well, the homeowners is building a home that's going to take some time to build. So there is a provision within the building code where, he can work on and, have a temporary wall to hold the dirt in place for the house, so we don't lose the house should there be a landslide or anything into the canal. And that temporary wall will then become part of the underground support for the house. But while this whole issue with DEP and the location of the existing wall that's there, of whether it has to be moved, a foot, 5 feet, 10 feet, what have you. So he does have the right to build his house that's on his property. They're also filling in, there was a letter that came in from an arborist that the owner of the lot has contracted with, and the arborist basically said those 3 trees that we have a pending code case on, that they were dying and they would have needed to be removed anyhow. So we do have that on file, and I did also try to reach out to the neighbors and see if we could have some type of compromise, and at least from the hookers who took my invite, and they met with Tasso, the owner of the property, and we were unable to come to a resolution that was happy for the neighbors. It boiled down to their view from their house. So all the parties are here. Tasso flew in again from Canada, so he could be here for the meeting tonight to answer any questions you have. But where we're at, we're in a position to grant the building permit. He's gone through and supplied everything that was needed for the building permit. And according to the building code, he is allowed to build his house and have it protected by a temporary retaining wall that's not really seen. It has nothing to do with the existing walls that are there. So, and we do have to give him an answer, so that's why I wanted to get it on the agenda to be in front of you, so you could hear both from the neighbors and anybody else that wanted to comment on the situation, and the property owner himself. And so with that, I'm not sure exactly how you want to proceed. I can have the property owner come up first and address you if you'd like, or if you have public comment, you want to take that first?
I have comments from
Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Hooker, and as well as Perry, he's here as well.
Yeah.
He put it in. I don't have any from Mr. Tasso.
Well, I figured you might want to hear from him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
You have, what, 3 minutes?
If you could fill it out. Yes. But in the meanwhile, I'm going to want to hear from Mr. and Mrs. Hooker, since they've given me the first cards. Please.
Mayor,
Yes.
this is a point of order. I think the property owner ought to go first.
All right, I'll respect that. Yeah, oh, sure. Tasso, come on up.
I need to distribute some stuff first, so you all have a copy.
If you'll give it to the clerk and she'll distribute, please.
These are pictures, and this is mix sets. No, it's like, there's 2 pages.
You're sitting next to him, you gotta keep him straight.
Are we keeping it?
Keep passing them down, please.
Okay. Still do.
Keep one for you. You have one?
No, I didn't see them take. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, there's 2. There's a landscape drawing and there's a
Okay, I got you.
elevation with the wall drawing.
2.
We're going to share.
Go ahead, Tasso.
I don't know why it's-
Oh,
wait for
wait,
Mr. Dyke?
wait for the town manager. I'm so sorry.
You have to wait for the town clerk.
And the town clerk too, yeah.
Well, this is more, right?
Oh, so this is, oh, this is.
That's all right, we can share.
All right. Tasso, go ahead. You can start.
So you have 2 drawings in front of you. One is to show you the position of the walls and some options, and there is a hatched line which shows you the buildable area where the house is going to be in the drawing. And the other one is a landscape drawing, which has the house on it, and unfortunately, you don't have the measurements, but I can give you some just as a reference. So those are the 2 drawings that you have. So first, I want to bring up a few facts. You know, there's been a lot of I guess, information that is not correct that's been said. People are discussing my wall and still talking about the first wall, which is long gone. The current wall, and please, I will, all measurements I will give you are based on NAVD, which is the Association of Water Levels, which is set by the state and revised every 4 years. So we have the most current one, which is, I think, 2022. The current wall, where it is today, the one that is being questioned by DEP, which the DEP line runs through it, and you can actually see that on your drawing. It is the black wall, and you can see the DEP line over there reside on it. At a couple of places it goes over. It actually, exactly where the retaining wall line goes, you can see right there, the DEP line is landward of the wall. But the wall, for the 70% of the wall is above the DEP line that has been so far calculated. So that's an important feature for everybody to know. So in the measurements, people talk about my wall and they keep saying it's a 20-foot wall. The wall is 20-foot NAVD. It is only 17 feet above the ground. Very important to know that, because you're going up 3 feet in the slope, so the ground goes up in the wall. My neighbor's wall is 13.5 feet NAVD, my south neighbor. My north neighbor has no walls at that level. They have walls above. There have been claims, so the views of my neighbors, who are both above me, because the south neighbor
I guess this goes this way.
so So most of the pictures that you have are of other walls. Some of them are 2 lots south of my south neighbor. But I'll discuss the pictures after. So both of my neighbors, their properties from where they reside primarily are above my planned rear deck level. One of them is at 31 feet, and the other one is at 21.5 feet. So they are above, looking down at me. I am not looking down at them from where my backyard will be. Currently, I have already given in a plan to move the current wall completely upland. So it's moving about 3 feet, and it will be completely upland. It becomes the red line. That is my planned wall position. So it will be, as you can see in your drawing, it will be 20, I can't read the number, I'm sorry, I didn't bring my glasses. It is the number that's at the far end, to the north side. It says 20 feet to the wall. And there is a green wall which I have proposed, which would bring it to 24 feet. That is the discussion I had with one of the neighbors, but it was fruitless. We didn't reach any compromise. Moving the wall up will again reduce its overall height because we're going up the slope. So from 17, it'll become 16, and if we go further up, it would become only about 15 or 15.5 feet. That's the discussion I've had, so with the wall over there. There's been discussion that my wall causes problems with debris on their property. The new wall position will see water contact 4 times, 3 times per year, only when there are king tides. So how much debris could it push on their properties? And even if that's not the way water flows. As you know, the current goes, the river goes, it goes up or down, and it's going to move everything. So that's really not a comment. Some people say they don't like the color of the wall, that it's black. The first wall that we designed, that we sat here for a variance meeting, was gray cement, and again, it got shot down, and that wall was at the 25-foot mark, and it was gray, so the color obviously isn't the only thing. Let's remember that if you look at the landscaping plan that you've been provided, 80 to 90% of that wall will be hidden, including the cap. My wife has it as a 100% guarantee from me that she will have vines growing over it because she hates the cap. And the contractor has said the only way to have a solid wall is to have a cap. So the compromise, we have growth below and vines from above hiding the wall entirely. The landscaping plan speaks for itself. You will see the planting. There are approximately, I didn't do the total count, but about 50 trees being planted, which will, hide walls and separate the properties. The neighbors claim that my wall will damage their view. You have a picture there of the property in one of the pictures where you see the lot empty and you see the 2 houses of the neighbors. They had zero view until I cleared the land. It was truly a forest that was between those 2 properties. They had absolutely no way to see each other or to see the water or anything through the dense foliage that existed. Today they can see the water, even with the wall there. When the wall is moved to its final position, there will be 30 feet of beach at low tide, 25 feet of beach at normal, and 15 feet at normal high tides. We're not talking about king tides. So there will be plenty of beach in front of that wall. I have also agreed in beginning the construction of the house and some of the walls. To go back to the temporary wall that will be installed, it will be installed 55 feet from the water, completely outside any jurisdiction and only for safety reasons, so that, as Mr. Daniels said, we don't have an accident with the earth giving way while they're pouring the footings for the house. This is for worker safety. And it is nowhere near any zone. That wall can be erected and kept there, but obviously it serves no purpose in our world other than during the pouring of the footings of the house to protect the workers. We talk about the black wall, and you can look and see all the walls there that are metal in those pictures, and they begin to rust, as my neighbors to the south rusts. And you can see the picture, it's quite visible. And many of those walls aren't being camouflaged by plants because they happen to be a secondary wall or a little further back and then thus not covered by your ordinances, so people don't bother planting anything and they're fully visible. Some of those walls are 30 feet high in 3 steps, if you look at the pictures. So my wall, I think, would be less obtrusive and invisible to most people once it's built and fully landscaped. Getting back to one of the things, just a side note, in our driveway there are 2 planned drains going down. Jack has them in his drawings. And the important thing with those drains is we have a stormwater collection system that will catch the water in the driveway and bring it into an area to let it percolate into the water with underground areas specially designed to take that water away from the roof and from the driveway. Properly designed for stormwater protection. Any questions you may have, I can answer on the walls. Remembering that you also have a picture of the wall that I had on my property, which belonged to my south neighbor. You can see it, the ravine built along the side where the water ran off his property, and you can see the wall that I had at some places was 10 to 15 feet high between his wall and my property until now I'm building my property and rearranging my levels. So my neighbor was allowed to have walls that were 10, 15 feet high beside my property, but somehow some people are objecting to me having exactly what they have.
All right, you're going to get some questions. Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, I have a quick question. I don't see a pool on the plan, but I do see a thing that says pool, fence, and gate. Or is there going to, what's the story
Where do
in
you
the
see
pool?
pool fence again, on the landscape drawing?
No, yes, on the landscape drawing.
I have no idea why it's there. There is no pool planned at this time.
Okay.
You have very good eyes. I can't read that.
All right.
Oh, I see where you see pool fence and gate. That's because it's put in as a pool fence because that ramp is an ADA ramp going down to the dock that is planned, and for protection that no children can run down that ramp, because the bottom of the ramp, they would be able to fall into the river if they got down that ramp. So I believe that's why they have a fence of a certain height, so that no kids can get by to go down to the dock and possibly have an accident.
Okay.
I believe that's why they wrote that.
Vice Mayor.
Okay, so on the pool side, you have no plans at all to put in a pool?
Not at this juncture.
So
We've
the
been
answer
told-
is maybe.
It's not a maybe, we've been told we're not allowed to have a pool.
Okay. And so, I'm just curious as to, my other question is, when you're gonna put fill in for your house,
Pardon?
when you put fill in for your house to grade it up?
Fill dirt.
you
I
put
don't need
dirt?
fill.
You're gonna put
Because
fill
of the
dirt?
slope and how we're building the house, all of the dirt that's near the front will fill in everything that's there. Remember, there's a slope like this, we're carving out an L of dirt here, which pops over here.
My question, I guess Jack maybe would know. Does DEP require a certain type of fill?
Well, we're not gonna be in DEP land.
I'm asking Jack.
Okay.
He's correct. This is outside their jurisdiction, so it would be,
Okay.
anything upland is totally 100% mine.
Okay, so they can use regular soil on that?
No, there's a special soil that they would have to use to build. It's in, you just can't use any types of soil to build when it's holding your building on it. It has to be a certain soil, a certain, because it has to be compaction, yeah. So it's not just a regular, you just can't grab dirt anywhere and put it on that to use it to build.
So in other words, you
It
need a
has to be
special,
compactable. What's that?
you need a special soil? Yes or no?
Correct, yes.
Okay, you just said no.
You said,
I don't know.
What I'm telling
Somebody
you-
said you don't need the soil, I just asked the
We
question.
don't need to bring soil. When they dig out
That soil
and pour
is,
the footings,
is okay by DEP, I guess,
correct,
or
we will,
whoever?
yeah. The only fill that will be brought in is the stone that needs to go under the driveway, which you need crushed stone under driveways to support whatever has to go there.
Okay, because from my understanding, and I'm no engineer, but my understanding is you have to have that special fill if you're building on the water side, the bluff or wherever you're building that way.
I'm not aware of
If
that.
we show you the plans, a very special, there are 6 feet of cement under that house
Okay,
to stabilize it. There has been a soil study done by a firm that recommended the type of foundation that house needs to have to ensure that it does not end up in the river.
okay, and is that included in what Jack would have in his
Yep.
to pack it?
Well, it's part of the compaction before they're able to pour anything. Whatever soil he does use has to meet the compaction ratio.
Okay, and you get that report?
Yes, I do, from an engineering company.
That's all I want.
Yeah.
And he has the drawing of the cement footings. I invite you all to visit when they pour the 6 feet of cement. There's
No, I'm just-
a ton of cement going underneath to make sure that house stays where it's put.
Commissioner Fender.
Thanks for coming out and sharing this with us. First of all, I'll say, I support your right to build your property on this, build your home on this property. It's a beautiful property, and I went down and toured it, so great job on that. I will say my biggest concern is the deviation of the land contour, right? So the wall, not super attractive. I believe you when you say you'll cover it with vegetation. I hope you do. But I'm concerned about, and I quite can't figure out from here, the location of the wall. I'm super happy that the wall on the water is gone, but I'm concerned about the location of the current wall compared to the contour of the beach that stretches several blocks into both directions, right? Because it sort of looks like your property, from my layman's eyes, sticks out beyond the way the standard flow of the peninsula.
I would gladly bring you up in my plane and fly over the water and show you that 30% of the walls along that side of the river are seawalls.
I'm not talking about seawalls. I'm talking about the beach.
If there's a seawall, there's no beach. They're in the water.
Okay,
I gave you drawings, you have pictures in front of you, two houses
I'm
down.
looking at this one, right?
You're only looking at 3 lots.
Well,
You're
I
on-
stood on the dock.
Yeah, you're looking at 3 lots. I can show you the picture that's 1 lot down.
Sure.
So this is these 3 lots. I will show you the next, oh, this is staple. Can I undo the staple?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, this is this property, and I will show you. I want to make sure I get it right.
I think I actually took some pictures. I haven't looked at them in a while. Let me see what I have.
Here we go. So this is the property. Here there's a property that has greenery. So imagine north, me, south,
Yeah.
property. This is the next property, seawall, riprap.
That would be where I would consider the end of the beach, if that, what you're saying is true.
Well, obviously it's riprap, but why do you call that the end of the beach? There's
Well,
beach further down, there's
okay.
beach further up, there's walls everywhere.
I'm only looking at this beach that we're talking about here. When I stand on the dock, I can see pretty far down in both directions
So,
of what I would call beach.
so we have to be clear, the current wall of the south neighbor is at 27 feet. We will be somewhere between 20 and 25 feet. So we will be no more than 7 feet beyond his wall, and most probably less,
Just find my pictures real quick while
right?
we're talking.
And you can see that in your drawing right here. If you look at this drawing,
Yeah.
you can see the wall of the south neighbor being right there, and you can see the current wall and the 2 proposed walls, one of it bringing it to within 2 feet of his wall.
Okay.
And that, when I discussed it with my neighbors, was
What
refused.
about the top side?
What top?
Well, okay, you showed me this one down here, right? What about this one up here?
They have no wall.
Okay.
They have no wall.
Okay. Well, I'm just curious, if there was a concern about the 2 feet, was there a concern about the no feet? Not that I want to get involved in negotiation at all. I'm just, obviously, the green line is much better than the red line or DEP line, right? Are you suggesting that your wall will now be the
What I'm
green line?
suggesting to you is that, I'm spending a lot of money. The value of my house, the land was bought with certain rights, and those rights are still there today, and I think that I should be treated fairly.
I absolutely agree
And,
you should.
you know, that as long as I meet
And it
all of the legal requirements, it should, you know, the 2 feet shouldn't make a difference. There was a discussion on how to get those 2 feet, and the neighbors were not, let's say, one was not present and one was not willing to agree.
Yeah, I don't know legally. I'm worried about aesthetics, honestly.
Aesthetics
Yeah.
are obviously in the eye of the beholder. Your idea of the beach, my idea of the beach, my idea of a backyard, your idea of a backyard, they're all going to be different. So, I mean,
Tell me a little bit about the no pool. I was surprised to hear you say that you are not allowed to have a pool, because that seems,
so to build a pool according to your current ordinances, I would have to build a pool at about 11 and a half or 13 feet above NAVD, which would be 6 feet lower in my backyard, which means I'd have to go down 3 flights of stairs, or 3 or 4, depending, you know, the legalities, because if you tumble, you'll die. You can't have an endless flight of stairs. There are rules on how long each section of stairs.
I'm confused. Are you saying you could build a pool if it were lower down?
Closer to the water.
Closer, okay, all right, okay,
Closer down, further down.
all right.
But that doesn't work for us based on the fact that we have to go down 3 or 4 flights of stairs to get to the pool, and the danger of falling out of the house to that level. So, you know, you can imagine having a pool 20 feet below your veranda, 25 feet below your veranda. It didn't make sense to do that. And the terracing that would have been required, and all the stairs and everything would have created some challenges.
Okay.
It was looked at.
All right.
The only way for me to get a pool is to apply for a variance and have another meeting with the Fine Town Commission and see if you agree that considering the special conditions by my lot, if you look at that lot, based on its depth and the semicircle of the street coming into it, there is very little buildable depth in that lot because of the 50-foot setback, the 35 from the street, and the street comes into part of the lot because it's a semicircle. So there is only about 52 feet of buildable area between the front setback and the rear setback. That is the total depth of buildable space that I have from front to back. And it drops from 30 feet to the water in that 100 feet from the street to the water. So it is, I would say, one of the most special conditions in Sewell's Point because of its shallow depth. If the lot was 300 feet long, we wouldn't be here today because I would have had the depth to have a normal house, and I wouldn't have had to put $150,000 extra in cement to make sure it doesn't move. I wouldn't have had to build $500,000 of retaining walls to hold it back. I would have not had to do any of it.
Quick question. Did you ever receive, or can you get, an architect's drawings of what it would look like once it's complete? So you can show maybe the neighbors, the commission? Give us a better idea.
Drawings, so that you're talking rendering?
A rendering, yes. This way, it gives you more visual. Right now, when you look, all you see is the walls, but you...
I want to begin and say, first of all, is that the house on its own, we have renderings. The wall, until the DEP makes its final decision, and I've agreed to abide by any decision the DEP comes, I think the town will withhold my occupancy certificate if I don't abide by the DEP, so I can't move in. I would say that, you have my 100% commitment that we're going to be within the law. And I don't know what more can be asked of me than to be legal.
I think that's not that. In other words, you're trying to give peace of mind to your neighbors, the town. In other words, if it looks really nice and you're like, you know what, that's not that terrible, you might get...
I tried. I flew down last Friday for a meeting and had that conversation. And
I wouldn't give up, is all.
it's
I'm
the second
suggesting.
time I tried, and I'll try again, but again, like I repeat, it's all about me giving and nobody else giving. And somehow, That's not the way I built my business or my life, where I'm the only one that gives and nobody else gives.
This,
Hey, Mayor, do you want to have him go on the microphone? So,
yeah, I'm sorry,
I'm sorry, I moved up to show you stuff. I'm so sorry. I'm also not good at speaking into microphones, but anyway, I've tried. The evidence that I've tried, I've waited. I bought the lot in 2022. It will be 3 years in a month from now. So you can imagine my patience to date. And I'm now told you that we're going to follow all the laws. I don't break laws. I'm a law-abiding citizen. So, the walls will be put where they are legally allowed to be. And some people, no matter where they are, will never like them. There's little I can do to that. I can't penalize my children and my grandchildren to appease people for their personal views. I mean, if the wall is so ugly, I'm going to be looking at it myself. Anyway.
Commissioner Titikus.
So, Mr. Castellitis, a couple of questions.
You can call me Tasso. Kostelitis is a complicated Greek name.
It's as bad as Titicus in terms from pronunciation. So, is the retaining wall that you are proposing, is it the green line or the red line?
So currently, it's the black line.
The black line.
That's where it is today. We have already sent in an application to the town to make it the red line, which would be outside of DEP's regulations. It would be outside of regulated wetlands or surface waters. So fully legal, fully permittable. Legal within the current city ordinances. Legal with the current Florida Department of Environmental Conservation. So that is where we have put it for our new application, our revised application to move the wall, making it fully legal. We have offered the green line as a further concession, and it was refused by the one neighbor that attended the meeting, the north neighbor. The south neighbor did not attend the meeting that the city organized.
Okay, got it. Then I have another question in terms of, and I understand that you want to comply with the law. So why did you cut down all the trees?
Do you see the landscape plan, what we're planting?
Yeah, but you need a permit before you can cut trees down.
We had permits.
You had a permit
We had two
to
permits
clear the
to cut
lot?
trees. So let me just explain to you the little bit of problem. We had permits to cut all the trees where we were building walls. Permits were issued and we had them. Then, and one of the things that we always understood to be part of the law is any trees within the house footprint do not require a permit to be cut down. Because how could you build a house if you have trees there? What do you need a permit for? You have a permit to build a house. You don't need a permit to take the trees out. How can you build a house without taking the trees? That was our understanding. I don't know if that was a misunderstanding or whether there is a gray zone in the city ordinances. I am not clear yet on that point, but I'm sure we can ask Jack or Mr. Daniels if that is the case. That was the thought of the people that were working on the property. The same thing, we were bothered about removing the trunk of a tree that was cut down, which we are obligated by law to cut down. We had an invasive species. We took down the tree, we were stopped from taking out the roots and the trunk of that for whatever reason, because people were complaining. All of the trees that are along the north side of my property aren't natural trees. They were planted by my neighbor on my property, and I have to get a permit to cut and pay to cut them down. All of those trees are not natural. They were planted by my neighbor using my property for their landscaping. I
Okay.
can show you that on the landscape plan. Yeah. You can see the property line and all the trees that are on that side.
Well, I'll ask your neighbors when they get up which one. That, okay.
Yeah.
And then, our, well, those are the two questions that I have for you, sir.
If you have anything else, I'm
Vice
here.
Mayor,
Yeah.
Vice Mayor has a
Yeah,
question.
sure.
I know I just think, for some reason, I just get the feeling you didn't do your due diligence on this property.
In what sense?
Well, I mean, you just came in here and told us about all the things that you have to do because it's gonna cost you all of this money to bring it up to code and to do all this other stuff. But it seems that, you know, if you're gonna buy a piece of property like this in 2022, I would have thought that somebody would have told you, you know, this is a real problem.
Well, what,
I mean, with the
problem are you
pool, now you're
referring to?
talking about the pool, okay? Now you're talking about going maybe possibly for a variance for the pool. However, you know that you can't build a pool there. Why didn't you find that out sooner?
So. let's
That's
begin.
I just want to know why you
So the
didn't.
person who did the due diligence
Yeah.
was an architect that's on Ocean Street, who works in the area. And we got all the advice, and we were told clearly at that point that to get a pool, you would need a variance. We were told that, and we applied for that variance in February of 2023. And we withdrew it due to the opposition of the neighbors. I believe the mayor was here. I don't know if any of these commissioners were there. We withdrew it, so I don't remember who was here at that meeting. We withdrew that thing. So we did not expect the opposition because here you have, whether you look down at grass or you look down at a pool, in our minds was, well, why would anybody be bothered by a pool, looking down at a pool, understanding the special conditions of this lot? You're gonna look down at my backyard and my fire pit and me suntanning, or you're gonna look down at my grandchildren swimming in a pool down there. And I say look down because both of my neighbors will be looking down upon my property. So we never, fathomed that there would be such opposition to a pool that was below.
I guess maybe you should have got a guy from Sewell's Point to tell you, rather than a guy from Jensen Beach.
Possibly, you're possibly quite correct.
Commissioner Fender.
Maybe my perspective's a little different. I think it's an amazing property, and I think you're gonna build an amazing house there. And I think it's gonna be a prized property of your family for generations to come. But I feel like there's some creativity that an architect could help you with that would allow you to have a pool at the proper height and solve the staircase issue you articulated earlier. Maybe it's multiple floors. I don't know. I'm not an
We're
architect.
already at 3, so we should have put a 4th floor in, you suggest?
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm suggesting that it's an amazing property, and I think you're going to build a wonderful home there. I hoping that you adhere to the aesthetic of the peninsula and the community, and I love my neighbors. I want my neighbors to love me, so I work pretty hard to make sure that I do get along with my neighbors, and I would think a property of that stature would want that. I heard the whole I don't give and take sort of thing. I don't want to give too much. I don't know. To me, it's not about giving. It's about architecting and building a property that fits the aesthetic of the
I
community.
can assure you, Commissioner Fender, that was looked at very, very carefully.
Well, I
Once,
think it's an
in
ongoing. I think we've done-
2023, when it was refused, that was the first step we went through. And architecturally, considering the depth of the house and everything, it made it impossible. It made it impossible.
I'm not an impossible guy. I think it's achievable.
You're
But-
welcome to design one for me.
Well, I wish I had the skill or the time.
But an elevator,
We
Oh,
already
that's
have
what
an
I'm saying.
elevator. There's 3 floors.
so you add another.
Well, that's what we're saying. So
Anyway, don't
we
give
looked
up,
at the
that's all I'm
fourth, we
saying.
looked at the fourth floor possibility. We did look at it.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes,
And remembering that it would bring us down to the flood zone level. That's another important thing that you have to consider. If you would have built a pool down at the 11-foot level, now, the top of your pool is 11, the bottom of your pool goes down 8 feet, you are now in the flood zone, and possibly that pool is illegal, because the bottom of the pool now gets to the flood zone.
But
The
I
flood
think your
zone-
neighbors have pools, right?
Wait, hold on,
They're not at that
I
level.
got called on.
They're not at that level.
I haven't said anything yet, and I got called on to speak.
My apologies.
To reference that, the beach thing, I went out and visited the property, and the hookers are very kind and helpful, and I see why they have a concern. But I also think that area has just been lucky to not have the owners build the retaining walls. So we do allow them. I live on an area that has just all
see the
seawalls,
picture.
all the way around, not in my area too. So I agree that aesthetic is beautiful, but I can't, I like people who follow the rules too. And if we allow it, we can't force, I mean, I want everyone to work together, but you can't force him to not have the wall because we allow it. And so I think it's just been, it's been wonderful that they have what they have, but we can't force it to stay. And I do agree this lot is a challenge. All those lots are a challenge. And the hooker's house is absolutely beautiful. Those lots are challenging. They go down, and I think he's correct. His is short. The plan looks good. I also appreciated the hookers printed out all the codes. So I went through all the codes trying to find where it would not be, and I'm not the lawyer, so but I couldn't find where it wasn't following it, to our town's credit and to the homeowner. My only issue is kind of why I brought up the pool, because that does say in the code that they showed me that it says it doesn't obstruct the neighbor's view. So I was like, okay, well that is important, because that is a little subjective, and it does address that. So I have concerns about having a pool there, but you say you're not going to do that. Other
Not
than
applying
that,
for a pool, there's none
yeah.
on the there's none on the drawings, and there's no application for a pool permit.
other than that, I mean, honestly, and I live on the St. Lucie River too. It's gorgeous. Everyone is lucky to live there. It's beautiful, and we all want it to look beautiful, but we have different ideas of what that beautiful could look like, different ways we want to use it. So I do encourage the working together, but as long as he is following what our codes are, and again, the only one I could see was the swimming pool issue. I didn't really see that we can say, no, you can't do this. That's not really our place. We can make new ordinances, and we can try harder to protect the beach, because I think it is beautiful. Those areas that are not developed are beautiful, but I don't have the right to say, no, you can't do that if we allow it. So that's.
I would say that there are very few lots left along the beach on that side of the island. So any changes to the ordinance would only be for people renovating their waterfronts, not for people building new homes. There are no lots left. So, I mean, like I mentioned to you the last time we had that conversation, you're discussing bringing in an ordinance to do what? To
Protect the peninsula.
Protect who? Protect which? They're all built. The seawalls are in place. You know, I would gladly take you on a boat ride or a plane ride so you could see all the seawalls and all the walls that are within 5 feet, 10 feet, and that are 20 and 30 feet high. I can bring you endless pictures. I mean, and that has nothing, I just brought it to show it to you so you understand where you're living, that we don't have this idea that isn't the reality. Let's look at the reality of what's out there. That's what's there. And I'm within the law, as Commissioner Mayfield said, and we're having this discussion, which sort of boggles my mind a little bit, because I'm telling you, I'm going to be fully legal.
Yeah, of course.
And we're having a long, long discussion about something that's legal, permittable, and no, I can't live in the house until that wall, that bottom wall, is approved by the DEP. So I don't know what else could be asked of me.
Yeah, of course. And not disagreeing that you have the legal right to work within the ordinances. That's not my point. My response to Commissioner Mayfield is I agree with you, but there is the concern of the encroachment from Miami, right? I mean, if you allow your community to die the death of 1,000 cuts. Just because you are allowed to build in the last buildable stretch of beach on the peninsula, because somebody down at the end of the peninsula, before anybody had the foresight, built a seawall right up against the water, I'm not sure you should do that. And I think you should modify your ordinance to protect that stretch of beach that I did find the pictures of, and I'm happy to share them. Not to take anything at all away from the work you're doing. As I said, I think it's going to be amazing, however it ends up, and I think it will end up positively for you at the end of the day. But I think our job is to interpret the law and then realize where the loopholes are and then close those loopholes.
But see, I don't think there are loopholes in this, but I'm all for making better ordinances. I mean, if, you know,
Maybe I'm using the term loophole incorrectly. You're right. We should change the ordinance to ensure that we protect that beach, right? I mean,
well, right now, yeah.
and by the way, that's my opinion.
But
We all have an opinion.
we have a tendency, these things come up when a property owner tries to do something that's in our laws, and then we get mad. So we need to be more proactive and change the ordinances when it's not contingent on someone trying to do.
Nobody has that kind of vision. You know, it's impossible to do what you
I
just
think
described.
Commissioner Kurzman had vision in driveways. Look at what we're doing. Or Mayor Kurzman. Like, you say we don't have vision, that's a little disservice to
So
us.
I'm
Let's
just
get a vision.
suggesting that the argument for a driveway is the difference than cutting down a 150-year-old tree or removing a piece of beach that will never, ever come back to you. We can move a driveway. You know, we can fix a drainage problem.
That's true. It's a
But we
delicate,
could- yeah.
it's a delicate balance between property rights and,
Yeah.
and what we can do. So,
And I just feel like,
and we don't,
I feel like I need to protect the long-term, non-reversible, and I'm just one voice, but I'm trying to not build into the DEP beach waterway if possible, but also not to the expense of towns. I mean, I agree, he has every right and should be fighting as hard as he can to build the greatest property that he has.
I would only tell you that you should speak with Mr. Len Rubin about when you think about changing an ordinance that affects property rights of existing owners, there are laws which would come in the way. And some of those laws are quite punitive because you remove value from the property owners.
That
Right.
argument doesn't work with me personally, I get it, I mean, because it is my job to protect that.
Yeah,
Yes.
anyway,
All
I'm
right,
just-
let me-
it has no bearing on
Yeah.
me, but I'm just telling you that though I agree with your
Right.
philosophy,
Good. Good.
My turn?
Commissioner Titicus,
Thank you.
yes.
Okay, I feel like Commissioner Mayfield. You spoke more today, Frank, than I've heard you speak in the last couple meetings. The other question I had, and I forgot it, I want to ask it. Have you considered building on pilings as opposed to footers? And, you know, I know that you had borings done, everybody had.
what would that achieve, Frank, Mr. Titicus? I mean, if I built on pilings, I'm still stuck with the depth. I have 50 feet buildable. So even if I build on pilings, then I'm going to ask you for a permit to have a balcony that exceeds into the 50-foot zone. I mean, to create a backyard on pilings, I would still have to go into that zone. So I wouldn't have a wall, but I'd have these ugly pilings.
You never see them. Your house is sitting on them.
I don't
You
see
tourist
them.
the house.
If you look at your picture. Look at my neighbor's pilings. Look at them. They're clear to you, right here. Where's that picture?
Right. I seen it. I saw the picture. You don't
We know
need
what
to
you're
show
talking
it.
about.
There you go. There's my neighbor's pilings for the pool. They're well hidden, aren't they?
Right.
So,
And then the other question is, you know, and the way that this is worded, it says that staff recommends that Mr. Castellitis receive a building permit to begin constructing his residence within the allowable buildable area, and as a stipulation, a certificate of occupancy won't be granted upon completion if the retaining wall remains in violation of DEP. I mean, to build a structure, and you said it's a three-story structure, is an expensive endeavor. And suppose DEP rules against you.
No, you're misunderstanding. DEP will come out with a final ruling. Whether that line, and let's pretend this is my lot from here to here, and the house is over here at the 50-foot. DEP will say the line goes here. It'll eventually become a line in the sand. And whether that line is here, here, or here, that's where the wall will be moved to. I will not challenge the DEP. I have not challenged the DEP. My neighbors have challenged the DEP's definition of where the wetlands end. I have not challenged it. I said, that's where it is. I removed the first wall. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I removed it. The second wall crisscrossed the line, and they said, well, since you're above and below, we'll leave it there. My neighbors are against that. So I'm already saying, you know what, my neighbors are against it. I'm moving it another 3 feet to be above the line completely. And I've offered to move it even further. And I'm still getting resistance. I mean, I'm holy, but I'm not holier than the Pope.
Okay.
Vice Mayor,
There was a movie, Law-Abiding Citizen.
Pardon?
There was a movie, Law-Abiding Citizen. And
Oh,
he-
is there?
and he
I've never
wasn't
seen
so
it.
law-abiding. Just two things that bother me about the whole thing. View of the adjacent properties and the pool. The pool bothers me because you're giving us a maybe answer, and you're telling us there's not going to be a pool, but you say you're going to go for a variance. That kind of bothers me, okay? Because we're looking at something, and you're telling us, oh, no pool, no pool, no pool. Like, your answer here was no pool. But, again, he's going to go for a variance, for a pool.
I didn't say it was. I said I may. I may in time. It may happen.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I can't predict the future, but what I'm telling you is.
Yes, you can.
There are no plans now. There are no plans now to go for a pool permit.
Well, those are my biggest concerns.
But they play no role in the current permitting. There's no pool asked for, and I understand your concern, and I respect your concern, but I'm not asking for a pool, so considering it, I don't know.
Well, you're not asking now, that's all.
Yeah.
That's all you're telling us, you're not asking now.
Yeah.
But we know that you're gonna go for a pool. And you're gonna be back here again, and we'll be arguing about the same thing.
No, it'll be with the BZA.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's not us. Yeah. We all have that right to go to the BZA. Every one of us up here, if we want to build our house larger than it's supposed to be, everybody in this room has that right, so, as well as
Be the
Tansa.
BZA.
Yep.
Is there a such thing as a conditional permit approval, where you would write in your requirement?
I don't, possibly.
Let's, Commissioner Mayfield.
You can take mine off.
I have a question for Mr. Reisinger and the town manager. If this is strictly a permitting issue, what's it doing here?
It is here because of the conflict that existed, and when we had the discussion at the last meeting, I was directed to bring this issue before the commission, and so that's why we're here.
Yes.
And then, second question, who wrote the memo?
I did.
You did.
Oh, no, I think this one, bear with me here a minute.
It says,
this-
"From Jack Reisinger
Yeah, so it was
through..."
written by Jack.
Well, I have a question in this aspect of it, that the memo says that Mrs. Hooker referred to a town ordinance regarding the definition of terrace, arguing that any retaining structure should be no more than 3 feet of height above grade and tiered accordingly. I explained the term terrace is in this context is unrelated to returning walls. It's my understanding Mr. Reisinger was not at the meeting.
That's correct, but
So-
this has been a discussion, it's gone on for probably a year in reference to the walls, and that was the latest issue that came up, was about the terrace, and it's not a terrace property, it's, it's the straight level of where his yard's gonna be with the slope. Again, we're just trying to bring forward as many of the facts, and there is a right that he has to have a building permit to build the house. And once the wall issue gets resolved, because as you've heard, It's not resolved as yet, but I also want to remind the mayor that you do have some public comment cards.
Yes, I got to
So-
get to them. That's correct.
So you might get some of the information differently from the residents, and that way you've got the whole picture.
I feel that's a fair thing to do. Thank you so much, Tasso. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And just to stretch further, just to let you know, every one of the commissioners, I think, have been to these properties at one time or another. Correct me if I'm wrong. So we've all pretty much gotten involved to some extent. So I'm going to call up first, Mr. or Mrs. Hooker, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Take the other residents first.
What's that?
Take the other residents first.
Oh, there's no residents.
Is it just the Hookers?
No, this is Mr. and Mrs. Hooker. And this is Perry. He's the other one.
No, I would like to supersede their presentation if I would. They have consented to do so. Would you agree to that?
Please, go right ahead, Perry.
Thank you. Put it on my tab, please. All right. Oh, what a handful of information and discussion.
Perry, can you talk closer to the mic? Yeah.
And provide your address, please.
Now, when in doubt how to proceed, follow the format that was developed. So, on Tuesday afternoon, on May 20th, Mr. Daniels invited me to
You'll have to
attend.
turn it up. Hold-
We can't hear you. How about if I keep talking until you can
Can we
hear
get,
me?
Please
get
speak
more
louder,
volume on
Chuck,
that?
because otherwise it won't get picked
I-
up by the
It is-
video.
Yeah, go closer
How
if you
is
can
it?
to the
Real
mic.
closer, like
That's
this?
perfect, Perry.
Oh.
You got it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so on Tuesday afternoon, on the May 20th, Mr. Daniels invited me to attend the reference 23rd meeting. I declined attendance, offering an explanation that the meeting would be contrary to the assurances by Mr. Daniels and Mr. Resslinger that no building permit would be issued until the DEP matter was concluded. The application for a building permit in Sewell's Points requires its applicant to obtain all county, state, federal, and local permits that may be required as part of the project. The Department of Environmental Protection's pending hearing of the property's wetland delineation is an impediment to the obtaining a building permit. The commissioners are advised to decline the request of the building department and town manager for a waiver of the building permit requirements that would favor the interest of the 7 Morgan property owner. And finally, disregard assurances of future building code compliance contained in the request. Okay, that's the written narrative. No, just go, just let me just speak. There's a lot of information that has been presented during this meeting. It'll take time to assimilate and to also make for successful or satisfactory responses. I do have in an effort to promote Mr. Tasso's plight, the most recent photograph of the shoreline that contains the wall that is of the primary discussion as to what and how this matter should be resolved. Has that photograph been disseminated through the council people? Now, there's a couple of things that you must know of my background, is that the property I now reside in went through an extensive remediation of soil and of foundation work to be able to prevent its continual slide into the river. Then I also learned after the acquisition of the property that the Hookers had a similar concern, and that concern was stated by their architect. The architect's observation of my structure's building that was built in 2005 was it'll never stay on the bluff. It's just built too far into the slope. This is of interest because this is what the property of 7 Morgan is configured, is that there is an enormous drop from the level part of the property to which the structure would be built, and that the advice of getting pylons and to secure the foundation is a wise suggestion. Now, the other contention is that wall is, I keep hearing like it's 20 feet, 22 feet in height. The wall that I have, that I use that has been used as a retaining wall for the foundation as part of the remediation of the soil movement for my residence foundation, is 12 feet. It is approximately 10 feet higher than what I have. The concern is one of aesthetics, and it's just too high, and it is much too close to the shoreline. There needs to be some type of a cord that will move it back and also lessen the unsightly effects of the wall and its detriment and adverse aspects to the property owners. What more? I would just suggest that the matter be again reviewed, perhaps maybe in a collective conference, with the property owners, and so such matters can be sorted out more thoroughly. Thank you for your time.
Before you sit down, I have a question.
Yeah.
You referenced a building code that said that it requires all permits be received before applying to the town. What's the number of that code?
I'm not understanding the context of the question.
When you first got up, you said that before the town can issue a permit to build, our code requires that all building codes, our building code requires that all permits received before applying to the town
Yes.
for a permit. What is that code that you are referencing?
I spoke from the narrative. An application for the building permit in Sewell's Point requires its applicant to obtain all county, state, federal, and local permits.
Right. What's the number on that code, Chuck?
It's a attestation by the applicant that he has, in fact, abided by all the other directives that oversee the construction on the property. In other words, federal, state, local.
So, okay, so then am I to understand that that is not part of the town's code?
No, it is, because on the application, what the applicant signs for the building, that's the attestation that is made by the applicant that I have, in fact, met all the other requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. or Mrs. Hooker, whoever wants to come first, so we come up together. Name and address?
Hello? Hi.
Just
Yeah.
name and address.
Okay.
Alice Hooker, 6 Morgan Circle.
Robert Hooker, 6 Morgan Circle.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start this thing off a little bit. I do want to say one thing, that sort of our objective of having this beautiful house built next door is really to have it within code, because outside of code, it really interferes with our appearances and our cost of our home. And, 90,000 square, 90,000. I just put a 2-0. 9,000 square feet is a sizable home, and especially on that property. Interesting enough, our property has got the same square footage just about to build on as his property does. His is 15 feet wider. Ours is a little bit longer from the road to the water. So we both have the same basic square feet. So it's a case of we've got to work something out that really complies with all of our rules and regulations and things like that. So I'll start with, okay, I've got a little thing tuned up here a little bit. I am speaking tonight to share and ask for your assistance with the Sewell's Point Code. Sewell's Point has always been concerned about the environment and vegetation in our community. Since we are a dune peninsula with navigable shores on both sides, many municipal codes were written to protect the bluff, beach, and shoreline. After the owner of 7 Morgan Circle withdrew the application from DEP, the owner representative sent an email to Mr. Reisinger stating that they did not need a permit or exemption for DEP, which was not true. Based on a lie by Mr. Reisinger, then issued a permit for 7 Morgan Circle to construct retaining walls around the entire lot with one 11-foot high and 3-inch from the mean high water level, a second wall 21 feet high, 12 feet from the mean high water level, and I believe that's the same one today. The permit was for retaining walls only and also clearly violated at least 2 codes. One of our codes is you got to be back with a. Hold on, I'm having fun. Come on. You have to be back 10 feet from the mean high water level with it. And here we are, our head guy in this department, saying you can put one 3 inches from the mean high water level. I don't know how you can go that far wrong. Continuing on, retaining wall upland means structure more than 10 feet upland of the mean high water level, and the one wall was only 3 inches upland. Yeah, it's gone.
And the permit was for retaining walls only.
Yeah. Plans for changing in any shoreline of a stream or other waterway within the town by filing shall be submitted to the town commission for approval or disapproval, etc., which was not done. Mr. Reisinger and Mr. Daniels interprets these codes differently than we do, and they also believe that the retaining walls have no height restriction. I am asking for you to review at least 3 codes which were given to you at the last meeting. Okay. The definition, it was 82-1. Terrace means an unoccupied open space which is continuous to and bounded on at least one, but not more than 2 sides by the walls of a building. It may be bounded on one or more of the other 2 sides by a wall or similarly enclosure having a height of 3 feet or less. That's key, 3 feet. Now, number 2 was 82.274. On riverfront lots, buildings as well as garden walls, fences, and railings in excess of 3 feet in height shall maintain a setback in no case less than 50 feet from the existing mean high water level. Third is an 82.276, which you probably could look up easily, where a property line borders on a bay, river, strait, or canal. The following shall apply. Fence, hedge, or other enclosure heights shall be not more than 3 feet above the finished grade of the lot. Now, those are our rules. You gotta be back 50 feet, and you gotta have 3 feet height. And you can't have these tall walls. That's what this really says. Please.
Okay. Retaining walls are considered structures that are not required to meet setbacks. They can be within the 50-foot setback from the river, but they are required to have height limits of no more than 3 feet as stated in the codes. Now, retaining walls, terrace walls are retaining walls, garden walls are retaining walls, and enclosure walls are retaining walls. And what kind of retaining walls does he have? I'm thinking it's an enclosure wall. He is enclosing a whole backyard in a retaining wall. And it can't be more than 3 feet high unless it's back 50 feet. So let me see, I don't need to read all this. I just said it. Okay, the 3 feet high limitations made within 50 feet of the mean high water line are stated there to protect the adjacent property's view and also, more importantly, keeping the shoreline attractive, representing what Sewell's Point is about. From my feedback from what I remember is that they're more concerned about what the shoreline looks from the river than they were the neighbors. So, and that's very important. He plans on building a home that's over 9,000 square feet on this smaller lot, and it's much larger than the other homes on our street. It's twice our size and most of the other ones. He's got a setback of 35 feet and a setback from the river 50 feet, and he's going to include the whole house in all that area, as far as I know. That's what I could figure out. I might be off a foot or two, but it's pretty much. So, and he doesn't want a pool down low, so if he wants all that space, and he doesn't want to build it in the cliff, he's got 3 stories, but 2 of them are up. And we have 3 stories, and the first one is the top story, and then it goes down, and it goes down, and it's built into the cliff, which is lovely, much better than a square house sitting on top of a big hill. Okay. I think I just said all that, okay. Okay, right now, he not only has a DEP violation against him at this time, but he also has a violation for removing trees from his property without a permit. There was a meeting set up from the code enforcement on May 13th, but they canceled it, and I'm told that it's going to be scheduled in June now. But he is in violation. He didn't have a permit. The permit expired. He was on a stop work order, and he just had a machine there and wanted to cut down the trees. So that's pretty much, while the machine was there, he wanted to do it, so. And last September, after the stop work order was issued, he had some workers on the property, and we called people, and they came and stopped him from working. He does do violations. The DEP violation, okay, the second wall, if you look, I don't know if you've got those folders we gave you last time with pictures. Picture 1 shows DEP's reminiscence of where the wall is and where the wetlands end. And all of the wall, but a little bit, is in the wetlands. And if you read his chart survey, it says up at the top that they revised the survey. They keep doing revisions, and it says that they just copied the line from DEP on it, but they didn't copy it very accurately. So the wall pretty much is in the wetlands, almost totally. Let's see.
But you're going to move that anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I know. Well, you just told me today.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
So,
I told you at the meeting. I told you at the meeting on Friday.
You said a lot of things to me.
okay, Mr. Perry and we all both have hearings that DEP is going to be scheduling to determine where the wetlands end. And I trust DEP with their soil samples out there after both walls were there. The first wall, when both walls were there and Mr. Perry called DEP and they came out, They advised him to stop work on the one that was closest to the water at that time. They couldn't force him to stop, but said, you know, this isn't there. And he did lie to the city and said he had DEP's approval, didn't need anything. And he decided to start the second wall right away before, anyway, and then finally they did a stop work order on it. But when they came out, he wanted to retest and say that neither wall was in the wetlands, so that's why they came out for the whole property afterward. Otherwise, if he would have taken that wall down right when they said, they wouldn't have come out and redid all the rest of the property. At least that's what DEP, the lady Bailey, had told us. So, since he was protesting taking the first wall down, so he didn't immediately take it down. There was, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks, and with a whole bunch of shuffling around, and then testing came out, and so that's how that went. Anyway, we're asking you to refuse the building permit to be issued at this time until all the violations are resolved and the municipal codes are clarified. Mr. Daniels and Mr. Reisinger had said that no permit would be issued until DEP was resolved. So why are they going back on their word right now? I don't know why right now everything's happening. There was one other thing I wanted to say. Well, I'll have to let it go because I can't remember.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Yeah,
you'd
for
like to-
us,
When are we going to eat?
Yeah, right, no.
Commissioner Titicus.
Yeah, I have a question. And in the memorandum that was put together by Mr. Reisinger, it says retaining walls are classified as structures not subject to setback requirements. Yet, you had cited in the letter that you sent out to all the commissioners, you had cited that section 82-274 regarding setbacks, riverfront lots on riverfront lots, buildings as well as garden walls, fences, and riverfront lots, and railings in excess of 3 feet in height, except those exempted by section 82-276, shall maintain a setback of no less, in no case less than 50 feet from the existing mean high water line measured perpendicular from the primary structure. The town's contention is that a retaining wall is a structure and not subject to a setback, yet at the same time, the code references buildings which are structures according to the code. So I don't understand the town's making the statement that says retaining walls are classified as structures and not in accordance to setback requirements when this code basically says they are.
Well, I can have our building official come up once you get done with the hookers and, you know.
Yeah.
the one thing that I would like you all to do, this is what I forgot to say, is on these codes, if you really read them and evaluate them, they do have limitations, and these are all retaining walls. And I don't know what they want to call their retaining wall. He said it's not terracing, but there is a second wall up there, so they have more than one level. They have one that goes to the front yard. It's on the side of the house, so. But they were going to terrace it all until I brought this up. And then they said, oh, well, we're not going to terrace the walls. But all these are walls. Garden walls are walls. They're all retaining walls of some kind. And these were set to protect the 50 feet forward.
I have one last question for you all, maybe not, it depends on the answer, but when do you anticipate, has DEP told you when a hearing will be held?
They sent me a little thing. They're going to send over our hearing petitions to a judge this week. And when it gets to the judge, he's going to take 7 days to call us or something and set up a time frame, and it's going to be within the next 120 days. we have to say when we can't come. I happen to know that Chuck Perry's going to be gone the whole month of June, and we're going on a cruise in July, a couple of weeks, so we got to tell them when we're not available so they don't schedule it, and it's out of our hands. And if they schedule it and it happens to be at a really bad time, if we let them know right away, within 3 days or something, they can shift it. But I don't know when it'll be, but it'll be within the next 120 days.
Thank
I know
you.
that's 4 months, so.
Yeah.
And that says it on the sheet I printed out that they sent me.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say that I think you guys have done a very good job paying attention, making sure the rules are followed, trying to protect your area and how things look. So I do appreciate that, and I think it's valuable because the town can only do and see so much, and we're all subjected to our own things we don't do completely correct. As I said before, I did go through all, because I really appreciated this. It saved me a lot of time and energy on Muni Code to have it all here. And like I said, and I'm still sticking to it, from what I can tell at this point, I think due to your I think you've made progress, is what I'm saying. There's been progress made, and I think it's due to you guys. I don't see anything in this that he is not following except the pool issue. Like I said, I understand that issue, and going to the BZA sounds necessary. The whole retaining wall versus other walls, I don't like to argue semantics. That's not really my place, and I don't want to get into the legal, what did you mean by wall versus terrace versus whatever, but I will say retaining wall, it does say designed and constructed to resist the lateral pressure of soil, where other things maybe aren't, everything below it is level. So I think that's one of the main things. And the way he described his house, it does sound like it will be resisting the lateral pressure of soil. So that is kind of, I just wanted to say what I saw as the difference between retaining wall and some of those other things. But I do really appreciate your efforts, and I think it's made a difference, but I don't want to get too detailed what I think is right and wrong, because that's not really my place.
I didn't want to either,
But I think from what I've seen, if he's following what we have, I think, whether you wait for the DEP or not, I don't think it's reasonable to make him wait months and months. I know what it's like to have a home you're excited about and want to get going, so I'd be okay with it. And then to Commissioner Fender's report, if there's issues that we can make better with other ordinances, let's do that. But I don't want to make this homeowner be the scapegoat, it's kind of, I'm having some other flashbacks to like Oakwood. Like, I don't want to make a resident, a property owner, bear all our problems, really. That's kind of what he's doing a little bit, is he's bearing our problems, the town's problems. So that's my take.
Well, I'd like to ask one question. So on these other walls that are all retaining walls also,
Maybe she doesn't have that sheet.
oh, she doesn't. Oh, but I just read it.
Which one I have your thing, if it's
Yeah,
a
definition,
code.
82.1 and 82.274 and 82.276.
Yes.
They are all retaining walls that are enclosed heights,
It doesn't say, I don't think, this is why I don't like to argue.
It
I don't,
doesn't specifically-
it doesn't say retaining walls,
Well,
and so.
they are retaining walls.
There's separate words for terraces though, right? I know what you're talking about, where they have the levels, because I see
hold
them all.
the dirt back.
Or you go out on your terrace, which is just like a deck
Right.
that has no leveling. So that is why it gets
Well,
hard in my.
terracing means holding the dirt back on different levels.
It could. Again, I don't want to get into the, I'm
Yeah,
not going to
Yeah,
debate terrace.
Yeah, this is something that we really need to run by our council.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be in the town's best interest to let council handle this. This way, the town doesn't have legal problems. If we say yes to it, and then we find out we made a mistake, and council finds something else, or the other way around, I just don't want to get this wrong, whatever it is. I don't want to have lawsuits hitting the town. I want to make sure what we're doing is within the law. Everything that's happening, it's legal. That's above my pay grade. I have no idea. I see so many different arguments going back and forth. I don't know what's correct. Maybe there's a little bit of everything. But I'd feel best just putting this in the hands of council. Let them give us their opinion. They've seen a lot more of these cases than we have. I just, no idea what's right or wrong, just from looking at it. Interpretation could be different.
Okay,
And-
one thing though that is true, that nobody has a 20-foot wall near the water we went and took pictures of everybody. I don't know what pictures he had. I know next door to the north of us, they have an 18-foot wall, but it's 50 feet back. And we went in the boat the other day on Saturday with some friends, and we took pictures all along the coastline. They're not that great because we were going kind of fast, but there's only a few homes that had any walls that were of any height, and it looked like they were 50 feet back. I think there was about 3 of them, and I think 2 of them for sure were 50 feet back. But none of them couldn't have been more than 10 or 12 feet high. I mean, 20 feet is unreal,
You know,
I think that's out of the
just
question.
out of the,
Anyway, if anybody wants to talk more about it, we'll get together with you and go over some of the material that we have and some other data that we haven't had here. Okay?
Oh, Commissioner Fender?
yeah.
This is
I'm
not a
sorry.
question for them. I just
Okay.
want further
Okay,
question,
bye.
clarification from anybody who knows or council about the requirement to have DEP permits resolved before we issue our own permits. What is our stance on that?
Ed S. Council.
Yeah, and I wish I was more familiar. Is there a code requirement that you have that says that?
No, there's not.
Okay.
The addentation that Mr. Perry was speaking of, I do have that if you want me to read that in the record
Please.
for you, because I knew that you would ask Mr.
So
Tizick.
that's part of the application?
Yeah, here, this is actually the application for the single-family residence. And what it says at the bottom, it says, in addition to the requirements of this permit, there may be additional restrictions applicable to the property that may be found in public records of this county. And there may be additional permits required from other governmental entities, it's really small, I'm sorry, such as water management districts, state agencies, or federal agencies. So really what it is, it says, hey, you've got this permit, but you better check and see if you need others.
other
But there's no requirement that says, go get these other ones before we issue this. And because this was broken up, at first it was a one project, that it was the Sewall retaining wall house in one. That's when we put it in that order that, okay, nothing will, you can't go to the next step till you finish the first one. Later on, after all this surfaced, it was just brought to our attention that the applicant wants to just hold back the DEP permits for the retaining walls and the seawalls and just go forward with just the single-family house, which is a normal thing. Somebody wants to build a dock, I'll give you all your permits at once. I'll give you a family, I'll give you a single-family house, I'll give you the pool permit, the dock permit. But if you all of a sudden say, you know what, let me hold back on that pool permit for now, or the dock permit, let me just do the house, okay, go right ahead. So that's where that broke up, and that, it was like, why are they not requiring a DEP? Looks like it's in the near future maybe, but it doesn't hold up. I'm also under strict guidelines underneath the state to issue permits when somebody issues, when somebody makes application, unless I have a valid reason to withhold that. At this time, I don't have one. In fact, when I was searching the ordinances months ago, and it was brought to my attention, all these different ordinances that Mrs. Hooker was coming up with that was saying that it was not permitted, I then went over to Mr. Perry's residence and I spoke with him and I said, listen, I've got 30-plus years in reading ordinances and abiding by ordinances and upholding ordinances. I go, but there's nothing that I find in here that would stop this from going forward. He looked at me, Mr. Perry looked at me and said, correct.
Yeah.
And I wish he was still here because he looked at me and he said, you're 100% correct, there's not. And that was that. And I said, I was thinking maybe I'm missing something. But getting back to some of these ordinances that were brought up that were Mrs. Hooker was saying that we're restricting it, such as retaining walls. It actually says when the ordinance names something, they're talking about just retaining walls. And when they call something else a wall somewhere else in the ordinance, they're talking about a wall. And then there's a definition of a wall that says, and I've got the definition right out of our ordinance, Wall means a freestanding barrier. So if I take this and it's freestanding, that's a wall, could be a fence, it's freestanding. That prohibits movement across a boundary, so kids can't walk, dogs can't walk. A retaining wall is down here like this. You don't even see the top of it usually. You might see some of it. And then there's the part about the 3 feet above grade. If I read that part right there, it says, when the property line borders the Bay River, and this is the 3 foot height limit, that seems to be a sticking point.
Would you give me the citation? What are you talking about?
Okay, this is under the definitions, under section 82-276. And it's got the definitions of fence heights, types, construction standards. And if you go down to the part where it says fences, walls, and other enclosures adjacent to business zone property may be 10 feet in height. Then it goes down to section C, and it says where the property line, this is the part about the 3 foot, it can't be higher than 3 feet. Where the property line borders a bay, river, strait, canal, following shall apply. Fence, hedge, or other enclosure heights shall not be more than 3 feet above, and this is the part right here, above finished grade, not natural grade. A retaining wall is put in at natural grade and then is elevated. There's no height at all in our ordinance that says how high a retaining wall can be. And it also says it's exempt from setbacks because some properties have to put them way back to hold their property from sliding into the water. So they don't restrict where you can put it because they don't want your property to wash away. So there's always an intent behind an ordinance, and that's what I've always learned throughout the years. There's always a reason for that ordinance. There's a reason why they put that one in a particular area versus this one's over here. And the one that they're speaking of with the 3 foot height has to do with fences and walls, 3 foot in height, not to block the view from the neighboring properties. So if Tausel were to put his property at a level height, and then later on, and that's now his finished grade, he's permitted because he's got the retaining wall. Let's say it's right here. And his house is back here. And he wants to put a fence up along that to keep the dog in. He can only go up to 3 foot high right here because that's now the finished grade. That's where they're talking about the 3 foot high mark, not from down here. It's his final finished grade. So he would not be allowed to put a fence up higher than 3 feet above the finished grade once it gets completed. There was a couple other points that were made. As far as terracing goes, terracing, the definition of terracing is really clear, but sometimes people have to read the ordinances a couple times because in my mind it's clear because I've read so many ordinances. But the way terracing goes, and I said, well, you know what, maybe I'm going to think a little bit different about this one because maybe I'm not reading it like everybody else is reading it. So I actually took our actual ordinance, or our definition of terrace, the exact ordinance. I typed it into ChatGPT. I said, give me an illustration, please, of this definition. It was like it was reading my mind. This is, and I'll pass it up. That's what terracing is. And it gets confused where somebody's saying, well, I'm building a retaining wall and I'm going to terrace them, step them up. But that's not the way our definition is written, where it says terracing. That's what terrace means. It's a terrace. Terrace can be up to, any height you want. It's a patio area with a 3 foot wall around it.
So you're telling me that I put terracing behind my house? If I put this behind my house? Or just a terrace?
If you want a terrace in your house, yeah, that's it's a fancy name for a patio with a wall.
But so you would call it terracing?
I was trying to look for my definition. Here's terrace. Here's the actual definition in our ordinance, okay?
That's better.
Terrace, and it says terrace. It doesn't say terracing, it says terrace. Terrace
Terracing.
means an unoccupied open space which is continuous with the bounded, I'm sorry, I'm getting blurry right now, which is continuous to and bounded on at least one, but not more than 2 sides by the walls of a building. It may be bounded on one or more of the other sides of the wall, similar enclosures having a height of 3 feet or less. And when I put that definition in, meanwhile, I said, terrace, using this definition, here's the exact verbiage that I put into the computer.
Was that 82.1?
Says, using the following definition of terrace. Terrace means, and I'll read it again, the whole ordinance right there. It says, draw an example of a terrace elevated 20 feet above the river on the rear of a house overlooking the large river. So that's what terrace means.
You mean your definition of 82-1, isn't that right?
My definition?
I'm reading that, that's the definition that we covered.
I took this out of our code book.
That's our code here.
That's the town code.
Correct.
Question?
Yeah, I didn't get them anywhere else. I took them right out of there, or
Give him 1 second. Let me
But
see.
it's all the way you describe something.
well, and that's what my job is, I guess. When these things come up, I have to then look at the ordinances, look at the building codes, and I have to make a decision based on what I perceive that to mean. And I've got 30-plus years reading ordinances, definitions of them, the intent, by the way. Sometimes you really have to study the intent to figure out what did the forefathers want to get accomplished when they wrote this. So, excuse me, I'm talking right now? So that, again, what I'm trying to say is that I legally cannot stop this permit from going through.
On the house.
On
On
the
the
house,
house.
correct, on the house only. And what he's proposed is to only be into the setback, the 50-foot setback. Nothing beyond the 50-foot where the patio would be or anything else. Just the buildable area, the actual house pad is what he's proposing to start on and get everything else accomplished with DEP, whether it's moving the wall one way or the other. That's a separate issue. And by the way, there will be no CO, he's already understanding that, issued until that is resolved. And who knows when that gets resolved, because we know they don't work that quick sometimes at DEP. But again, I'll refer to the attorney if you have any questions
Yeah,
on
if
the
I'm-
legality.
With council.
Mayor, this is a little, now, I understand small towns operate in a certain way, and I represent a few small towns, so I'm used to it. But procedurally, like, this is not something the commission, so generally how it works, and I think your building official said, he gets an application, he determines whether it meets the code or it doesn't meet the code, he has to issue it if it meets the code. And then there is an appeal process, so if somebody disagrees with his interpretation, you can appeal it to BZA. But this body is the policy-making body to fill in those ordinances and protect your beach and do all the things that you need to do. But, I mean, this body cannot direct the building official. So while this is a great conversation, I think it's been real educational for everybody to learn about all this stuff, it just can't work this way. So essentially, the building official needs to do what he needs to do. There is an appellate process in the code that allows you to appeal to BZA if you disagree with his interpretation, and it really has to go through that process. The commission really can't direct the building official to not issue the permit or issue the permit. I mean, again, it's been really interesting discussion. I think it's raised some issues for you all to consider moving forward, but that's the process, and that's really how the process should be.
Commissioner.
I'd like to see the application, the permit application, number one. And then in terms of your comments, town attorney. Yes, sir. I understand your comments, and you're right. And that was one of my first questions, why is this here? That's another issue. Where's the attestation, Jack?
At the very bottom, real fine print. That's why I was having a little trouble reading.
That was 2 lines on the bottom.
Nowhere else? Nowhere
It's not a building application.
Well,
No,
It-
it's at the bottom, at the very bottom, last line.
this is a little different than what Mr. Bry turned around and purported, because he said that the building code requires all permits to be received before applying to the town. And that's not the case.
Right, and the other issue is, as the building official explained, this is just for the house, so it doesn't even impact where DEP has jurisdiction. So this is just for the structure, the house itself. And that temporary wall that they'll build is just a temporary wall during the construction process, correct?
It's temporary in a way it'll allow them to start building, but it's going to end up staying in ground because it's embedded. Yeah, it's
So-
back.
I have another question here,
Can-
Mayor.
Actually, I was going to give, okay, good. Commissioner,
And-
okay.
And this is directed to Jack, okay? You initially issued a permit, and you said a retaining wall permit that was 11 foot high. And in actuality, it's a seawall, or was a seawall. Is that correct?
The first permit, you mean?
Yeah, the first one,
I
the
believe the
one,
first one
the
was
one,
the
the
seawall,
one that
correct.
got taken down.
Correct.
Okay, but that was a permit for a retaining wall.
No, that was a permit for a seawall. I believe our permits say seawall / retaining wall.
Well, there's a dispute on that, at least in the write-up that I got from Mrs. Hooker, and she sent to all of us, it said basically a retaining wall was on that, and I haven't examined the document.
It's probably been a year since I've seen it, so I couldn't
Yeah.
tell you for sure what it says on the top of it.
Okay.
May I say something? On the application,
but
it
you-
talks about seawall on it, and it submitted an application for retaining wall. And it was just for retaining wall. I have all the paperwork, I took pictures of it in the file thing.
If I might,
Yeah.
please look up what seawall means. It is anything that is mean high water line. That wall is 3 inches landward of mean high water line. It is not a seawall. That is the definition.
Mayor, we're getting off
Yeah,
track.
Wait, yeah, that's, town manager, you get.
Yeah, I just wanted to say we're getting off track, because,
Yes.
you know, we're dealing with the house and getting the house straightened out, and, you know, the whole situation of the walls are going to be determined by another agency, and you've already heard that, you know, he's not going to get a CO until he fulfills those requirements. So it's, you know, we can stay here and talk all night if you'd like, but
There's
it's,
not much we can do at this point.
Right.
This is really in the hands of council, building inspector, and the residents that live here, and that's to be worked out internally, I think, at this point. I don't think this involves the commission anymore, from what I'm looking at. No matter what we do, we're not going to make a difference, and I'd like to pretty much put this to an end right now. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And- All right, we're going to go to staff comments.
yes, a couple things I wanted to mention to you on, my notes, sorry. We are in the process of running an ad for a administrative assistant to start working part-time within the staff and seeing if they have the traits that are needed to progress and move into the clerk's position, possibly. So right now, we have Zoe Berry, who I think I mentioned at the last meeting, but she's helping us out. I think next week's her last week, but she's been very helpful in getting, you know, the items in order. She's very organized, and if we could clone her, we'd keep her, but she's going to go back to Columbia after she does her internship, and so it's helpful. So we're casting the net to try to get the best person to fill in, and and work within the team that we already have built. So I wanted to let you all know that what's going on that side. The other thing is I am going to be out of town starting tomorrow afternoon for a conference. The Florida City County Managers Association is having their conference in Orlando. So I'm close enough by that if there's an emergency, I can come in, and Jack will be listening up on the day-to-day things for the town. But feel free to call me. I'll have the phones with me, and they probably work better in Orlando than they work here. So, but, and I think that's all I need to cover under staff comments.
Commission comments. Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, I asked the town manager about this, and he said he would do it, but I thought I'd just let everyone know. He's going to send an email detailing the road closures per our discussion at the other meeting, the detours, obviously as detailed as you can be, considering it's all somewhat up in the air. So good luck with that. But to give them, to give the residents some idea of when this current detour will end and where the others will be.
Vice Mayor.
Just a question. Why aren't we going for a clerk?
Uh,
Just curious. Why don't we go to the Clerks Association and see?
Well, we could, but what I'm trying to do is get somebody that's part-time. Our clerk was part-time at one point in time.
Well-
And Dan Hudson had recommended bringing her on board full-time. But it seemed, the other items that were supposed to be handled, and I'm not going to go into that, but, so it's hard sometimes to find a part-time clerk, but we're casting the net. And if we come across one that would fit the bill, that's fine. I'm not as optimistic that we're going to be able to find one right away, but we'll see.
Commissioner Titikas.
Yeah, a couple comments. One, I would appreciate it if we get a memo like this in the future that deals with ordinances, that those ordinances be cited in the comments so that we have the opportunity to go back and read those ordinances. And then also would like to know what's the status on the grant applications? Have you selected somebody to, one of the firms to, complete those?
We don't have another firm on board yet, so we're working.
Well, you still have Captech and, what's it, Space
Amy.
Coast or whatever?
Yeah.
So, but when do you anticipate that loop being closed there, Bob?
Hopefully within 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. And then at the last meeting, Mr. Capra suggested doing a poll of the remaining 368 homes. Where are we on that? How's it going to be conducted? Are we moving forward with it?
Yes. There's a draft survey that we want to get out to the folks, and it's 366. The remainder connections that we will need before we move forward in part 3 of the septic sewer conversions. So what we wanted to do was go out and see, the last poll we did was a year and a half ago, and that covered everybody. Now we just want to concentrate on that group so we can best address their needs, whether it be gravity or whether it be low-pressure systems, if the county was to agree.
County's not going to agree.
Well, I'm answering your question.
Okay.
So we're going to send it to the 366 so we get an idea. It's not going to have what system you want. It's going to have, if we go through and have a sewer line that runs in front of your house, will you hook up within 5 years? And the other option is I won't hook up at all until my system fails. So,
Well, follow up on that. I'd like verification because Joe said at the last meeting that if a gravity system is put in, the county's going to require a hookup within 12 months. Mandatory hookup. and we had a big discussion on mandatory. So talk to me, Joseph.
Mr. Capra.
So, first of all, I'm not sure I alluded to we did not know if they're going to make us mandatory, because they could hook up, or make us hook up, but I don't believe we said that they would definitely be mandatory. If I said that, I may misspoke, and because I still have an email, even though we don't have a letter from Mr. Sam Emerson that said that they were not enforcing us to hook up unless there was a failure of their septic tank. That's what I'm still living by that email, which I know is not, I know you've been asking for the letter, I agree with you on that, but we still have that email that says that.
Yeah, I'll take the email, but I would like, one way or another, that it be nailed down in terms of if there is not a requirement for immediate hookup, but only when your system fails with a gravity system, then that's an important piece of information that needs to go out to the public. If you have to hook up within 12 months, that's an important piece of information that goes out to the public. I had a resident, expressed to me that they just put in a new drain field and they wouldn't hook up right away, but when the drain field failed, yeah, they would. And I said, well, suppose you had to hook up within the next year, and it's like, no, I wouldn't do it. So it's going to impact somebody's answer. So that needs to be nailed down one way or the other.
I don't disagree with you, and I think you asked for that last time. So the trouble is, I'm not sure I'm going to get a letter, because we hear rumors all the time that, with all the money they're spending and all the, believe it or not, last meeting, we heard how we are not contributing to the degradation of the river. And Martin County has studies after studies, Port St. Lucie has studies after studies that is contrary to that belief, that we are impacting it. And so that's the reason why they're putting in sewers everywhere. And the county's been doing that for a long time. And that's why we're number 15, is because they are going down their list and getting sewers in just about every subdivision they can.
Yeah, and I think, Joe, when you go and you look at those studies, you're going to find that the two creeks are really the ones that are polluting the river, the St. Lucie estuary, and that there isn't a problem in the southern Indian River Lagoon.
Okay, but again, you can believe that, and I'm not going to challenge you on that tonight, but there's specific studies that they've been done, and we've had Mr. Brian LaPointe come here. He was actually chastised in the meeting he came to us with, explaining the studies that he has done, and he did further studies for the county, and then he did studies for the city of Port St. Lucie. So again, I'm not an expert in that area, so I'm not going to try to tell you that's right or wrong. I'm just telling you there's been enough information out there, and there's enough money being thrown at this issue by the state government, by the federal government, by everybody, that, and again, the goal we had was to not make it mandatory hookup unless your system failed. And we've done that, and we continue to pursue that option. I do agree with getting as much information as we can get out of Sam Emerson. But let me just say this. If Sam and the county get a directive from the Department of DEP that says next week you will have to hook up, I just got to be careful with what we're expecting to get out of him, because I don't know if he can say definitely that he would never make us hook up. But that's just my observation for doing this for now 20 years. But the other thing I would like to point out is I will get as much information as I can on that. We do have you saw what we put in last month's memo about getting a poll of the people, the 366. And quite honestly, I've had recent people call me wanting to know when they're going to get sewers, and they're not in
One
the
of them
area.
fits right there.
Yeah, so
Next week would be fine.
yeah, I know. So I keep getting these, and I don't know how to respond to them, to be honest with you, because quite frankly, we still have to go get a grant to be able to satisfy everybody's in town, and we still have to decide whether we're going to at least get together and talk to the county commission, which would be probably a good idea. We may not be successful, but right now, some people are talking, some people not talking. We have no idea. So I don't know, I have no way of directing people what to do. And I'm just being honest with you. I think we should at least, because we've kind of started this program, at least either move forward with something or basically says we're not moving forward with it. And if that's the direction you give me, that's fine. But I really do think we're at a point, because we have an $8.4 million grant, which we've spent maybe 50% of it. If we go one way, that $8.4 million grant would allow us to provide sewers in front of everybody's property. If we have to go with the gravity route, as I stated last week, what do we need? 7 million, something. We need that much money in grants. So we have to go up to the grants, and that probably is the most important grant, so that we don't lose the remaining money in the grant, because we are at the point where it is going to be hard to spend the rest of the $8.4 million before the grant expires at the end of 2026. So I'm not answering your questions, Frank. I'm just trying to tell you what I think is an important issue. I think the poll is important. I think the decision on a grant is important. I think talking to the county is important. All those are really important, but we're at a point now, I don't have enough direction, and we are getting residents that want to hook up, and some that have hooked up with the system we have available. So that's one thing. I would like to talk about the closure of the road, only because just to let you know something about that, but I don't want to interrupt you, Frank.
I'm done.
Today I was out there, and quite frankly, I've been impressed with the contractor's number of crews he's put on this job. He's not just put 1 or 2 crews, he's put 4 crews, and he actually put a couple crews from this paving section, where most of the work we're doing now is underground installation of stormwater facilities, okay? And the fact of the matter is, he's putting those crews out there because they have a much larger area they can work, and they are moving on getting stuff underground. They are definitely getting stuff. And of course, we've had great weather, and of course, if the weather changes, we would change, maybe our position would change a little bit. But I would say we need to tell the people the reason why we're keeping the road closed is we can get this underground work done quicker. And again, if the contractor wasn't giving me crews to do all this work, I mean, they're putting in underground piping, underground sleeving, they're putting in curb right now. I mean, they're doing multiple tasks. Olive Falls are finishing, and I'm just leery, if I start limiting the closure of the road, that means that's less space for them to work in, which means they don't want to bring a lot of crews out here. And I don't have any projects, and I will tell you this, it is very rare that you get more than 1 or 2 crews on a project. These guys have been loading it up, and they've been blowing and going, and I just want you to know that. That's my observation. I know it's making you mad, and some of your residents mad.
I need to I am not saying, go quicker or it needs to be done. I'm just communication. I want you to do it the way you think is right and the way that's best. So say it's going to be close till the end of July. I don't mind. Just give them something. I think that's just some kind of communication. And like I said, I'm conservative. I'm an accountant. Make it worse than it might be and then come through better. I'm not saying that you need to say it's going to be something it's not. Just I think they would appreciate, hey, we're thinking about you. It's going to be closed a lot, but we're still thinking about you.
I do agree with on the communication. We can always do better in that area. So I will agree with that.
Okay.
I just wanted you to know what I'm observing. And again, I think it has been impressive, because they're working in some confined spaces, trying to keep as much vegetation as they can. And I know people want us to finish one area or another, and again, we'd like to do that, but there is a procedure we have to follow a little bit. But I just wanted you to know that I think they're providing ample number of people out here for what I see on any other job.
Fantastic.
And I just wanted you to know that, if anything, I would say, listen, we are, to the public, say, listen, you may see like we plan on extending the closures. Let's try till the end of June right now. If the weather holds out, fortunately it has been holding out till now, but now we're starting to see some rain, and we see a benefit of keeping it closed longer, then we will close it longer and we'll give you plenty of warning. But, we could get a hurricane here, folks, and the news says we're going to get 16 to hit the United States this year. If we get one of those, we delay this project 3 months. there's no way we cannot delay it. The benefit of all these crews out here when we have a hurricane is they'll pump the water down faster.
No, you
So-
can say that. You can say it all. I just think you need to say something.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to make sure you knew what I'm seeing, and I'm happy what I'm seeing with the amount of the crews that they're putting on this job.
Joe, what % of the job is done right now? Are we right on schedule, a few days ahead now? Because a couple of
I
weeks
think
ago,
we decided we were 2 days behind.
2 days behind? Okay.
2 days behind, so.
And a lot of it has to, I think, understand, it's been explained to me, has to do with AT&T because they don't know where their lines are. And so they're basically handling it very slowly because they don't want to break the lines.
That's true, and quite frankly, from the last meeting, as much as the utility companies, FP&L and AT&T and Comcast, seem to be available, and AT&T is the ones that have been here, they've had people every day on the job, they have to find out, they don't realize that a cable on South Sewell's Point Road, sometimes it'll affect somebody in the middle of Raya Vista subdivision, which is, 2 blocks away. So it's not that they're not trying to help us, it's just that's a cumbersome project trying to figure out on, a cable, which one of the lines goes where. So it takes time. And we are going to try to have a meeting with them to point out to them, hey, listen, we need you to step up your game because you're slowing down my contractor in conflict. We've been fortunate we haven't had, I think they probably have a worse condition of public relationships than we do, because every time their cables go out, they get complaints about it. And I'm trying to say, well, maybe there's something together we can all do to make them not look so bad, us look good, and so forth. So maybe we'll get somewhere with that. I don't know. They have been providing people. It's never enough, but they have their issues. AT&T has had some issues.
Can I ask you a question? Is there any way we could get them to lay fresh wire? And I know the other problem is that they still have, I think, maybe 10 people that still have landlines in South Sewell's Point. I don't know who they are.
I have a landline.
Okay.
I do too.
There's one.
I got 2 landlines at home.
We got 2 of the people that have landlines here.
Let me explain why. During Hurricane Francis and Jean, when the cell phone towers were knocked out, the only thing that was still working was a landline.
Yep.
And we put our phone on our porch so that all the neighbors could use it because they either had portable phones with a battery or they had a cell phone that wasn't working. The only thing working was a landline. I'll be damned if I'll give up a landline.
Yeah, you're right.
Good
That's
answer.
exactly right.
Good answer. All right.
I got a question.
Okay, like I said,
And Commissioner Fender, then the Vice Mayor.
I was just, to the point Kai was making about making a statement, is it something we can include in the next Snyder newsletter that goes out? A paragraph, anything giving some kind of indication of what you would expect the collision is?
Right, is that part of the newsletter?
There should have been in Friday's spotlight,
No.
there should have been a detour section.
I was thinking, sorry, that came out loud, just like how when Chief Tina does her, no, but I think it was more about safety. There hasn't been just only about the detour. I like the idea in the spotlight, but sometimes I don't scroll all the way down, so.
there was a lot of stuff in Spotlight, so it was pretty full. Yeah, it was all good information, too. Really helped us on the MS4 from a good job.
But I'm just curious, because I've been telling people one thing, I'm wondering, how long do you think this closure is going to last? Just be conservative?
Till January?
Is that into the HUD?
Well, that's when we're going to be done with the project, so.
Because I've been saying November, and you said July,
I
June.
said June. I was in trouble.
I asked the worker that was doing the sign, and he told me New Year's Day. That's what he told me. I stopped and, he's always directing me and, he told me New Year's Day.
Okay,
I think,
good to know.
I think what happens is, all the underground work is ditches. So, you have to plan around getting people to their homes, and you just can't, go in and just dig a ditch and,
I just heard her saying June, July, and I'm like, that's not what I've been telling
Well,
you.
I think realistically, the detour that we have now is through probably June, July 1st realistically, and just from our conversations. But again, all that's predicated on the weather, and then it'll move further south, doing more of the outfall, or not outfall, but stormwater ditches and pipes and everything else on the second half of it. So there will be a modification probably of the detour, but we're still, trying to figure out the timing.
And one of the issues with the detour, first of all, the southern part is where we have the Indian Mound, which has a special monitoring requirement of an archaeological person. So that can slow that operation down there. The second thing is, which Tina's very conscious of, is where we detour people to, what roads, because some of the roads have a lot of vegetation. So if you can imagine, the detour that we have now works really well because people can get around the subdivisions pretty well. But as we move south, we may, where would you want me to put people up? Homewood? I don't know if you'd want me in the Homewood subdivision or the Villa Lucinda side. I don't know where you're going to start detouring them. And so that's why it's not that we're not thinking of moving the detour. We're just thinking of, well, okay, what roads are we going to be putting them on when we do move the detour? So that's just something to be thinking about. But we'll get through it. It's just, again, those are things that we think about on when we decide where the detour goes. So.
Commissioner Brill.
Okay. Well, first of all, on the AT&T issue.
Right.
As far as that's concerned, they can do cable throws, what they call cable throws. It's a temporary thing that they lay a cable above the ground, and they do a throw from the original cable to the quick cable above the ground without disrupting service. Okay? And then what happens when you're done with the project, they rebury their cable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then they resplice it. So as far as that's concerned, that's one way around it. They don't have to go hunting for people's phones. All right? All right, but that's because I know, because I've done them.
Okay.
Okay. The other issue is, you said you got a letter about, or an email about
Septic to sewer.
septic to sewer from Sam Amerson.
Right.
Does that cover gravity systems?
It's
Or
not.
is that just for,
It's not specific. It just says that typically if we provide service there, he doesn't enforce it. It's not that he doesn't enforce it, I guess. He doesn't have to enforce the mandatory hookup within the 365 days.
all right, so in other words, it would pretty much only cover grinders, I'm thinking. I don't see him saying that about gravity systems. But, okay, we'll just keep that in the back of our minds. The
Well,
other,
the operation works better, you're absolutely right, with users, because you're going to have lift stations, right? And their pump systems, and their bottom line, he's got to make sure there's enough sewage going into it so he can pump it, so. And that's why we have to have these, we actually have areas where in the system we have now, that he has a tank that we pump water into to clean the system out. So that's the thing he needs to worry about. But you're right, he's got a much bigger issue when he's got lift stations too.
right.
So those are things that'll dictate, and certainly he would prefer to have the users, as we would all like that to.
You know, the other thing is, there's always the assessment part of it. You know where I stand with that, but, I don't want people to be assessed. We're going on the presumption that we're going to get another grant and we're going to finish that project. And people will get assessed. So we keep saying, no, you're not, but my gut tells me, yeah, probably so.
You got three commissioners that at least that won't let an assessment
Well, I
happen.
hope so.
And
I think.
if I may,
Sure.
Mayor, the direction I have is that we have to meet the criteria. So if we don't meet the criteria, and obviously having an assessment is one of that criteria. There's no assessment, there's no mandatory hookup, and we have to have an MOU with the county. And those are the three criteria that we've been living with Part 1, Part 2, and hopefully Part 3. But, it's just, we're spinning our wheels, and the date keeps coming where the grant money is going to end. So, and that's June, not the end of 2026, it's June 30th of 2026. So we're almost a year away where we have to finish 366 connections.
Well,
Commissioner Tickis, good.
then I'm a little puzzled, okay, because I would expect that a grant application would need to be filed pretty expeditiously, because normally, if I remember right, the filing time is in the summer, June, July, and then the award time is somewhere in the fall. And usually, it has in the past in January. This year was delayed, obviously. But, so, I would urge you to select whoever you're planning on using as a contractor, because you had committed to bring it back here for us to review it before it gets filed.
Correct. And, the problem is in Tallahassee, they don't have a budget yet. So, they can't allocate money for grants unless there's a budget. So the whole system's backed up. And sooner or later, something's got to give, because I believe, the way the law is, that budget has to start on July 1. Not like the federal government where they can just kick it down the road. So they have to come up with some type of solution, some type of compromise between the governor and the two legislative bodies. And once we have a budget, then everything will start up where they'll start announcing the grants. But you're correct. Normally June or July is when the announcements come out, and usually the fall. Last time, they didn't do the fall. And then they said, well, the governor is going to do a big press conference, and, it'll be in January. Well, January came and went, and it was just recently that we got the information on that we didn't receive the grants that we put in for. So if we would have gotten that grant, that would have carried us through and we would have had it in time. Now we have to wait for the cycle to start again.
And that's been with almost all municipalities. The governor hasn't signed off on a lot of anything, pretty much, very little.
Just a question on that topic.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just
Commissioner.
so I understand various scenarios, just for the sake of argument, let's pretend for a second that we don't get any more grants, that the grants you apply for now fail like the last section did. Where does that leave us? What path does that follow for what we've got now for the 8.4 and whatnot?
Well, if we're required to continue, like the county has said, to have to put in gravity systems, there's a higher cost. So if you still want to go ahead with the higher cost, we'd have to.
We probably wouldn't do that. That's why I'm asking.
Well, that's why I'm answering.
Okay.
But, we'd probably have to borrow money or find the money somewhere else to put the system in. But I agree with you. I think
Or not
at that point, we won't be putting the system
Okay,
in.
so let's pretend that in that case, we decide not to put the system in. What portion of the system is then completed, and what portion is not completed?
That's the 340 connections that we have between Part 1 and Part 2.
It's the colored area, the lower end of the
Correct.
peninsula.
So we, and then this is your choice, we still have money, right? The 8.4 minus
It will
the 4.
expire at some
So,
point, right?
but the point is, we could put from the poll, one of the benefits of the polls, we figure out where the majority of the people are that expect that they are going to hook up, and we'll know which ones plan on hooking up and which ones have problems with their septic tanks or drain fields already. And so from that, I would assume you'd say, well, why don't we use the money we have to do these 3 subdivisions? You wouldn't do them all, but you would do the ones where the most people would need them, I would guess. That's one way of looking at it. I'm just saying you had to, but the fact is, why would you want to give back the money if you still got about,
Well, that's why I'm
Five-
asking the question. I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure out what the scenarios are, because there's going to be no more money, and we don't want to assess.
right?
So you're suggesting that we're going to use the remainder of the money for some subset of the subdivisions, and that would be in a gravity scenario.
I would think that's what you'd want to do. I mean,
But I mean, the money will cover that.
we'll use what money we have to get as much as we can in, and then, again, with their understanding that they don't have to hook up, I think that's a valid point, and that the point is the fact of the matter is, we're going to base it on data we're getting from the public that tells us we want sewers in these locations. And there's probably, I would say we're going to be breaking it up into 2 to 3 different areas, okay? That seems,
I'm most concerned about the lift stations, because that's where the money, that's where the expense is, right?
yeah.
And the grant money we have in the 8.4 will cover that already.
Right.
Okay.
Some of the lift stations it'll cover. That's why
Well,
we can't do the whole.
That's why I'm asking the
Right.
question. There is some that we are not gonna do because there are no more grants.
Right.
That's the scenario I'm trying to draw.
Right.
Okay. Well, hope it doesn't come to that, but.
Any other commission comments? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you, Len.